Hey, if you're new to my channel, then consider liking and subscribing. It would really mean a lot to me, and honestly, it'd make my day. If you already did, thank you so much. Oh, and by the way, if you like listening to fan fiction, check out my other channel. The link's in the description. Once again by Double M7. Lady Toki grants Luffy one last chance to correct his mistakes. Luffy was sent 12 years into the past in order to relive his life. Though there was a catch, he retains his 19-year-old mind and body. How will he change the world? For the better. Adios.
2 months ago, with Mihawk, Bharati Dracul Hawkeye Mihawk was many things, but a babysitter, he was not. Presently the two girls were messing with his sword, as they competed to lift it. Sugar attempted to turn it into a toy while Baby 5 attempted to bombard the blade with missiles and gunfire. She was a living weapon, which was crazy in its own rights. "Why won't this blade get destroyed?" yelled the frustrated Sugar, who was joined by Baby 5. "It's because Yuru is the blade which will make Captain into the king." The hawk then placed the sword in his back and continued to stare in the distance. Two bored teenagers were a handful, but luckily they were finally arriving at their destination. The newly opened floating restaurant known as the Bharati. The money which Zeph was given by Luffy was put into good use, as now they could feed as many people as they would like. Upon entrance to the newly opened floating restaurant, the trio were met with a buffet of the best food two chefs can muster. Mihawk, Sanji, as the child that ran towards Mihawk, to which Sugar and Baby 5 thought he was going in for the hug. But instead, with the blazing will instilled in him by Zeph, his feet were set on fire at the friction of his steps. He then jumped up and attempted to deliver a blazing kick straight through Mihawk, but the swordsman fanned Sanji out of the way with one wave of Yuru. Sanji landed on a far wall of the floating restaurant to the dismay of Zeph. "This is brand new," screamed Zeph, crying at the sight of his brand new ship taking damage. "My apologies, Red Leg. But your hot-blooded apprentice is as passionate as ever." Though Sanji's demeanor changed once he realized there were ladies with the second commander. "Beautiful." He began to twirl around Sugar, then transferred to Baby 5. To each one his eyes nearly popped out of their socket at the young beauties. "My name is Sanji. I am 11, but even at my young age, you are both the flowers which blooms in my heart." The young man fell on one knee and two roses magically appeared from his back pocket and he attempted to hand it to the two young ladies. "I don't like things like this, Baka." Though Sugar had a noticeably blush along her cheeks. She looked like she was 10 by choice, but in all actuality, she was 12. Her ability allowed for age manipulation, toy creation, and memory manipulation. One of the most powerful abilities in all of the known devil fruits. Baby 5 took it a different way. Her frail heart took Sanji's approach as a proposal. "You actually want me?" The 14-year-old teenager could not believe the approach of the blonde young man. Though their little love fest was interrupted by Zeph, who delivered a powerful kick through the skull of the blonde-haired Casanova. "Enough, you thick-headed buffoon." Zeph then turned to Mihawk while Baby 5 tended to the wounds of Sanji. "Like I was saying, okay, I will watch the kids, but they better carry their weight." Mihawk looked deep into the eyes of the two young girls, giving them a non-verbal order, command. "Follow Red Leg. Respect him or die," was the aura he was letting out, to which both young ladies nodded slowly in agreement. "They'll be fine." Mihawk began walking away, but the young Sanji once again attempted to get the jump on him. This time Mihawk didn't even remove his blade as he took a sidestep, causing Sanji to overshoot his kick and falling into the wall by the entranceway. "Hawkeye." Zeph waved goodbye to the swordsman. "Red Leg, children, Sanji." To get a call by name by Mihawk. Sanji got up immediately, fired up by being singled out. "Sugar, call your sister every day. She insists." With that, Mihawk finally left. A stopover before moving on. "Alright little people, there are dishes in the sink, pots of stew to stir, Sanji will clean his mess, and we are opening in 2 hours. So get to it." Zeph was talking in a sweet voice, a little high-pitched due to wanting to sound nice, yet Sanji looked at him funny. "What the hell is wrong with your voice, old man?" But Sanji received another one of the Red Leg's axe kicks, causing bumps to form over the head of the blonde young man. "Get to work." To this the three children did get to work. "Good." Zeph had a satisfied grin over his face. He looked at both of his legs. remembering how Mugiwara stopped him before needing to eat it. For survival. One of these days I'll repay you. Shimotsuki village. The swordsman docked away from the island, traveling to the village through a small boat. Mihawk arrived in a grim environment. The death of a young woman filled the air. A certain moss-haired swordsman happened to run into him, falling flat on his butt. "It's you." The young Zoro was bawling in tears. "Back for more, huh?" Zoro attempted to retrieve his 3 blades, but his mouth trembled too much to grip the blade. Mihawk didn't speak, letting the young man explain the situation. "My best friend in the whole world died. The elders says she fell down the stairs. But I know what happened. He then fell once more on his back. Why did she have to die? This can't be real. I must be dreaming." Suddenly the young man had a bright idea. "Hey man, you're not from around here. You're a swordsman. So take me with you. Train me to be the best I can be." The hopeful young man shot up to his feet, looking into the eyes of Mihawk. Behind Zoro, an elderly swordsman instructor stopped in his track when he realized who Zoro was talking to. "No, I know that one day you will be my apprentice. But now is not the time for that." He stopped, dropped on one knee and grabbed the young man by his shoulder. "Get stronger." He couldn't bring the young swordsman with him, not yet. Zoro bawled out again and Mihawk began to walk away from the young man. The elderly instructor joined Zoro and ruffled his hair. Though Zoro had one more thing to say to the New World swordsman. "Next time we meet, I will earn your respect," the young green-haired swordsman yelled to the top of his lungs. He immediately turned to his instructor. "Sensei, please teach me the way of the sword." Zoro stopped crying, falling on all fours and begging the elderly instructor, Koshiro, parent of Kuina, to train him. To which the grieving parent finally smiled. "Let's go then, Zoro." It was time to teach Zoro the special techniques passed down through his family. Mihawk returned to the port, where his ship was docked. Though with his superior vision, Mihawk immediately noticed a small figure, running through the woods, a black blanket over her. Mihawk found this suspicious and immediately ran to where the young girl was, appearing in front of her and causing her to fall backwards. Her blanket fell from her head, revealing her short dark blue hair. "Who the hell are you?" She immediately noticed the black blade and drew her own blade. Though noticeably her blade was interesting, crafted with such precision. "Dracule Mihawk," he said simply, to which the young girl began to cry. "You're real, huh?" She began to tear up. Memories of her life flooding her. He bragged about meeting a great swordsman with a giant black blade. He even said he cut you with your own blade. "You are Kuina?" She silently nodded her head. "Why?" "I have to return home and learn my true history. A woman with a blade won't amount to anything in the East Blue. The only way to make it easier for everyone is if I died." Tears continued to flow from her face. She could not stop no matter how hard she tried. "So I took a heart-stopping capsule. Anyway, I have to go now, mister. My escort is waiting for me." She got up and put the hoodie over her head once more. Mihawk led her through as she ran to the port. He decided to follow her, hiding behind cover. He found that she boarded a tiny boat, one in which traveled to a larger ship anchored several miles away from the shore. The sail of the ship had the character for the word Shimotsuki. Even Mihawk was confused. It wasn't the village where she lived in Shimotsuki village. Who were those people? He attempted to learn more information. He was going to give a mirage. The ship which contained the young Kuina disappeared from sight. Shimotsuki. Island in the East Blue, Kabaji. "Hey Kabaji, you got any more water?" A red-nosed pirate laid flat on his back, suffering from the heat which was raining down on him outside. A lot has changed for the clown pirate. He was true to his word of training non-stop, but he still had fun here and there. "No, nothing, Captain." Kabaji looked at his empty cup, trying to drink what little droplet was left of it. Moji, I heard a lion carries a pouch of water on their back. Let's open Richie up." Buggy said weakly, although the lion jumped up in fear of his own life and buried its own head in the sand right next to Moji. "Those are camels, Captain." "Camels?" said Moji weakly as he pushed the lion away from him as it was so hot. "Well, this is not what I expected when Captain said locate the former member of Roger Pirates, Buggy the Clown." Standing over the quartet was none other than Rob Lucci. Behind him were the new recruits of the Straw Hat Grand Armada. Jewelry Bonnie with a piece of chicken leg on her mouth. Capone had a smoke in his mouth. Kaku, Bluno, Khalifa, and Jabra stood professionally beside Lucci. Galdino and Virgo were standing behind the group having a conversation of their own. "Who the hell are you?" Buggy immediately stood up, on his guard with a handful of knives in between his fingers. Kabaji and Moji joined him, trying to look intimidating. If you told someone that they were flat on their ass just moments earlier, then nobody would believe you. "And what do you want with me, the great Buggy the Clown?" His right eye narrowed as he looked at Lucci's face, mere inches from the third commander. Of all the people Captain sought after, Buggy was one of the people he wanted. After meeting the clown face to face, Lucci was curious as to what the captain wanted from him. Something about his uncanny luck. "My captain, Mugiwara, requested your presence. He wishes to make you a commander in his armada." Suddenly, Buggy's eyes nearly popped out of its socket. He then brought Kabaji and Moji into a huddle, quickly discussing the matter. Despite the attempt of a private conversation, Lucci could hear them easily. This was the time that was promised between them. "Yo captain, this is our way out of this damned island. I know that SHSS, but I'll play hard to get, maybe swindle some money from the serious guy." The trio looked at Lucci, who was impatiently waiting. "Okay, so ask for some Barris, then say you'll consider it." "Hey Buggy, I'll do you one better. Captain specifically asked to recruit you as one of his commanders." To this the entire crew of Buggy the Clown fell flat on their face. Me? Why yes, of course, my massive power reaches even the new world I see. How about we talk Barris, you know? Entrance salary per se." Buggy regained his composure from the surprise and was now trying to get some money. He extended his hands, to which Lucci dropped a bag of gold on it. This enough, Buggy's hands detached from his wrist and fell on the ground. He did not expect the weight of the gold bag. So much money for his service. Who is this Mugiwara fellow? Better not be that red-haired bastard, his sworn enemy. Fine, I'll come along since you people want me so bad. But remember, that the great Buggy will kill you if you overstep. Though realistically he was super excited to reunite with an old friend. "Whatever," Lucci said as the group returned to their ship. Buggy then ran beside Lucci. "So got any food and something to drink aboard your ship?" Thriller bark. "Glad you could join us, Mahawk." Lucci stood next to Mahawk as the two were outside the entrance to Thriller bark. Lucci brought along all the new recruits to take care of Moria's men. Moria is a pain to deal with, even that I admit. The two commanders walked forward, casually going through the haunted wonderland. Though he is manageable, I am telling you I do not need help. Lucky for the group that Mahawk's time matched with theirs, as he was able to join them after his mission in the East Blue. "Fine, but he has an army. Sure you can handle them all?" was Lucci's question. "Sure I can. With both eyes closed," replied Mahawk with a smile. Meanwhile, Buggy was hiding behind Kabaji as the cyclist was going through the graveyard section of Thriller bark. Moji was occupied carrying Richie. "Whatever, Mahawk. Anyway, I need you all to split up, locate Moria's people and take care of them. Do not kill though, since the captain wants to use them." Lucci's group nodded at their captain's orders. The group dispersed in groups of twos, with Kaku and Khalifa heading one way, while Jabra and Bluno went another. Of course, Kabaji and Moji were put together, while Galdino and Virgo were a team which left Boney and Buggy to work with one another. "Hey Lucci ya, Hawk ya. What should we do?" Law and Corazon hanged back as the duo were looking for a more interesting job duty. "Moria loves to make zombies go crazy." To this, Corazon and Law exchanged a look and beamed up. Time to train his fruit ability. Mahawk and Lucci went through the front door, knocking at the doorsteps of Gecko Moria, the warlord. "Kishishishi. I have visitors, Hawkeye and Cypher Pole. An uncanny duo if I do say so myself. Moria, Captain Mugiwara has tasked us with attempting to make an ally out of you. He wants to make you a commander in his armada." This was Lucci speaking, as Mahawk wasn't much of a talker. "Red-haired wants me? Tell him to fuck off." Living in Thriller bark, the warlord does not get much news. He has become complacent due to his powerful fruit ability. He cares for nothing but himself. No, not red-haired, Mugiwara Monkey D. Luffy, the man wanted for 1 billion Barris. A rookie, huh? Well, I am impressed at you both, and I assume there are more people in your armada. But like I said, not interested. Moria was firm. He outstretched his arm, producing a hint of shadow with each hand. "Oh, is that a threat?" Thought Mihawk was itching for a fight. It had been some time. Go ahead then, Moria. Do it. Lucci teased the warlord, egging him to strike. We're not leaving until you join. Fine, then I'll kill you both. Moria unleashed a flurry of shadow bats. The attack went straight for the duo. Rokushiki, Lucci activated the secret martial arts technique. Rokuogen, he placed both fists in front of him, sending a shockwave of energy which destroyed the incoming shadow bats. Awake my weapon. The very ground which the duo were standing on trembled violently. From somewhere close by a massive blood-curdling roar could be heard all around. Then they looked up, finding a humongous being that towered over them. My oars! The titanic monster yelled once more, causing Mihawk to look at Lucci. Take your pick. Mihawk stated, recalling the battle back in Totland. He decided to pay it forward of some sort when Arlong let him have the fight with Snack. Moria looked irritated at the casual conversation the two commanders were having. I want Moria. Lucci gave Mihawk a thumbs up, appreciating the chance of getting a choice on who he would fight. Fine. Mihawk dashed towards the titanic monster, his blade trailing behind him. Oars swung his massive fist forward, fist colliding with the ground which Mihawk was on. For a monster, Oars was fast, but the thing is Mihawk was much, much faster. In a matter of seconds, Mihawk was already climbing along the arm of the monster, swinging his blade several times to deliver powerful air slices towards the face of the beast. Despite his massive blade, Oars was barely affected by the air slices, merely flinching at each hit. Mihawk smiled, finally being free to do as he pleased. Back in the Armada, only training with Galdino's wax clones and Brulee's mirror clones. Oftentimes there would be some heated spars, though nobody can really say they have gone all out. Now in the face of his biggest opponent yet, the swordsman, which aimed for the greatest of them all, smiled in the face of adversity. Oars attempted to swat Mihawk fly, but the swordsman evaded the powerful palm by jumping in between his fingers. His blade suddenly emits a powerful aura. It was none other than Haki. For the years he's been with the Straw Hat, it was inevitable that he mastered armament, specifically, armament coursing through Yuru. He then generated a massive slice, this time his blade going through the shoulder of the mindless beast. The cut went from the upper right shoulder straight down through the armpit. His right arm fell straight down on the ground, detached from its reanimated corpse. A small tremor ensued at the impact of the fallen limb. The zombie giant decided to use its head, smashing it along its own left hand, trying to squash the swordsman. Though Mihawk simply cut the zombie's head off, effectively ending the terror of the titanic giant. The head of the continental beast fell near Moria, where Lucci had a smug look on his face. It was almost like Mihawk meant for it to fall towards Moria's general direction. Was it a happy accident or purposely done? What's the matter, Moria? Didn't see that coming, did you? Doesn't matter, I can still defeat you, then deal with Hawkeye. The shadow user unleashed a tornado of shadow demons, launching them at Lucci. The Rokushiki user disappeared in a blur, Shigen. Then while Moria thought he encased Lucci in a shadow trap, the man appeared behind Moria. He delivered a side kick over the side of the warlord's head. Moria was lucky his shadow caught the attack, though he wasn't lucky when Lucci delivered a close contact, Rokuogen. Moria immediately felt the pain, an intense level which he had not experienced in years. He coughed up blood and doubled over. But Lucci wasn't done yet, delivering another Rokuogen at the reeling shadow user. It did not stop at one or two. Lucci kept going until Moria was flat on the ground. The shadow user was unable to put in an ounce of offense. Rob Lucci was too damn quick, and to that the cocky warlord can admit. Uncle? Asked Lucci, as he stood over the fallen Moria. In his own sense of humor, Uncle meant surrender yet? My generals, they will arrive. Do nothing because they've been taken care of. Lucci interrupted as to save Moria from wasting his breath. Virgo and Galdino returned with a beaten Absalom. Kaku and Khalifa had Dr. Hogback tied up with a rope. Jabra and Blue Note took care of the zombie army without breaking a sweat. Kabaji and Moji returned empty-handed, crying tears of joy as they did not have to deal with any monsters. Buggy and Bonnie returned with a tied-up girl, who seemed to be too big for the clothes which she was wearing. Law and Corazon were there as well, responsible for handling most of the zombie fodders. What? Perona, you were 15, Absalom commented as he attempted to wiggle out of his bondage. This piqued Law's interest. Age manipulation was a thing? He's gonna have to have a sit-down with Bonnie. Corazon took note of this and feared for what Law was planning in his brilliant but puny head. This pink-haired pig made me this way. The former 15-year-old squirmed from her own bondage, which caused Kabaji and Moji to look away. Her sudden movement caused things to show, and they weren't about to mess with a teenager, no sir. She made me freaking 20. Perona yelled in anger. To this the duo took a peek. She was 20 now after all. What? The brat made me feel sad with her ghost, so I acted out of my mood, retorted Bonnie, looking for an ally, to which Buggy nodded furiously. He didn't want to anger the big eater. I phased you with my negative ghost and you decide to make me freaking 20, turn me back now. What is wrong with you? Perona yelled. Not with that attitude, hell no. The two ladies argued continuously to the dismay of the agents. But Lucci wasn't really paying attention to the exchange as he returned his gaze at Moria. So will you at least meet the captain? It was a tense few minutes where Moria slowly got up. He then twisted his body and stretched his tired muscles. Now he realized that his laziness was his downfall. Maybe these people can help him exact revenge on Kaido. Fine, I'll meet Mugiwara, but let my people go. To this Lucci gave an order for the release of the prisoner. But Lucci held his finger up. Mihawk approached Moria with a fair warning. Captain said no more zombies, messing with people's shadows, and degrading experiments. Was all Mihawk said, to which Moria nodded in agreement. His main source of fun was now forbidden, and yet the sweet prospect of revenge was very sweet indeed. Alright, we're done, exclaimed Lucci as his list was finally complete. He got all the people he needed to get, and it felt so good. To Water 7 they go. War Room. Water 7. The room was tense, to put it lightly. Marco the Phoenix was the 1st Division commander of the Whitebeard Pirate, and he doesn't get rattled. But looking around the room, he could tell that this group was serious. The floor was given to Mugiwara, who delivered a passionate speech about their purpose, and the time for action is now. Then the Fishmans countered with apologizing feverishly for breaking the promise with Whitebeard and thus causing this war. Mugiwara eased their worries and proceeded to rile up the rest of the crew. They then all looked at Marco, as Mugiwara asked, why had Marco come? I don't want a war, was his answer, to which everyone returned their attention to Mugiwara. They were satisfied with his answer. Marco was impressed at the respect which Mugiwara commanded. They all paid attention to him and nobody interrupted his passionate speech. Looking over his entire fighting force, Marco could see all the warlords minus Kuma, who was with the Marines, and Doflamingo, who was killed by the same man who was speaking. Empress, Moria, Desert King, then those who were invited to join, such as Hawkeye and Knight of the Sea. More notable figures were present, such as Gang, Big Eater, Demon Child, Soul Prince, the Man of Legend, Gold Emperor, the Saw, the Clown, and the Giant. Though the most troubling of the bunch, which he even considered was on equal footing of his own, was Dogtooth. The man himself was staring at Marco, watching his every movement. Marco returned the intensity and the room got noticeably quiet as the two powerhouses were trying to kill each other with their eyes. Katakuri, Luffy said, and Katakuri scoffed before returning his gaze to the Straw Hat Captain. Then the gaze shifted to Marco the Phoenix. What the hell is he doing here? If you ask me, we should kill him and get it over with. Crocodile spoke up, wondering what the hell the enemy was doing in their war briefing. Marco is here because he needs to know we mean business. As far as tactics, he'll be long gone for that. Right, Marco? Luffy looked at Marco, to which was protested by Buggy. What do you mean? He's our enemy, we should take care of him, yelled Buggy, who found his voice despite all the powerful people present. He was commander anyway. The old man will cripple at the loss of his phoenix, stated Moria, looking at Marco with a smile. Buggy, Moria, when I say I want Whitebeard at his best, I mean at his best. He then nodded his head, to which the giants that stood outside the hall. It was basically Mugiwara saying, you are free to go. You want Pops at his best, huh? In his heart he feared for the worst, as Whitebeard was declining in health by the day, and this war could push him to retirement or even death. You'll get the war that you want, Mugiwara. Tell Whitebeard that I'll meet him here, at the dawn of the new year. Luffy tossed Marco an eternal log post, its arrow pointing in one location only. No traps, no funny play. Just a straight-up battle between his people and my people. Can you send that message for me, Marco? Tisk. Was all Marco said as he morphed into his phoenix form. He opened his wings and flew away, taking the path which was opened by the giants. In his mind all he could think about was how much he failed. He failed to de-escalate the situation and sparked a bigger fire. One shaped the future of the world, for better or for worse. Alright Straw Hats, Luffy addressed his crew. Each one fired up as much as the other. At the dawn of the new year we battle fucking Newgate. What say you to that? Luffy was many things. More prominently, he was an amazing motivator. Hell, he felt like he could rival the likes of fruit user Bello Betty. How'd he know of her? Well, he's keeping tabs of the Revolutionary Army through word of mouth and articles here and there. We say hell yeah. The unison was magnificent, enough to make a grown man cry. The Straw Hats, even those who just joined, knew what to say and when to say it. By everyone, Luffy meant everyone. From the snot-nosed brat who was brought up by Shanks, to now an entire armada commander. Mugiwara Luffy has come a long way. The time which he challenged Whitebeard was the beginning of the new year, which was in 6 months' time. Looking over his entire grand armada, Luffy couldn't help but admire the fighting force which he assembled. In the 10th division there was Buggy, the man whose luck never runs out. In his crew were of course, Kabaji, Moji, and Richie. They were the first pirate group that Luffy considered to be a challenge back in his time. Alvida didn't count, she was a hag. In the 9th division, Gecko Moria was pried from the warlord system. Luckily, Lucci recruited him or else he would have been a possible problem later. He says they were equal, but it was obvious the trio of Hogback, Absalom and Perona were following his command. In the 8th division, the giant Haruden leads the mighty trio of himself, Dory and Brogy. It is Luffy's dream to bring an entire giant pirate division into his armada. He was glad that their dreams aligned. In the 7th division, the man whose wealth was unfathomable, Guild Tessero. The man who controls gold was in charge of their financial division. If anyone needed funds in weapons, equipment, or budget for food, people came to Guild. In his division were Baccarat and surprisingly, Jewelry Bonnie joined his division. The prospect of all the gold must have got her riled up. She was an interesting addition. The possibilities of her age manipulation abilities were endless. In the 6th division, Sir Crocodile, the man whose hard exterior was imprinted in his vanguard unit. He continued to carry his alias of Mr. Zero. He then gave the alias of Mr. 1 to Macvis, Mr. 2 to Gladius, and a new addition in Mr. 3 to Dice. His power-based unit was great for pushing through a strong front defense. In the 5th division, the King of Soul, Brook. His unit consisted of a theatrical personality such as Bentham and new transfer from the 4th division, Gem. And in his unit, for the impending war, the Minks decided to tag along his division. This is a temporary condition as the Minks were still prioritizing locating the poneglyphs. In the 4th division, the revamped underwater unit was led by Arlong. In his unit were the former members of the Sun Pirates. Aladdin, Jinbei, Kurobi, Hatchin, Chu, Ikaros Much, and Zio. Then to round out his division, a transfer from the 5th division in Laboon, and the addition of the Kraken. Now the top 3 division, the trio in which Luffy instills his most confidence in. That did not mean he did not trust the others, it was just obvious that these 3 were the strongest to say it frankly. In the 3rd division, Rob Lucci, the former Cypher Fall agent, has become a powerful ally. His division specialized in espionage and covert missions. Being a network-like division, his division consisted of some of the most powerful specialists. From the 4th division, Brule transferred to this department. Then Tanaka joined due to his useful inanimate object phasing ability. Virgo and Galdino were also powerful additions in his crew. The last to round out the group were the former agents of Cypher Pole, Kaku, Khalifa, Bluno, and Jabra. Then the 2nd division was solely for Dracule Mahawk. He prefers no crew members and nobody has changed his mind. The powerful swordsman was one of the best in the world and his ultimate goal was to be the best. When Luffy recruited him, they fought for a solid amount of time. It was then when he decided to join Luffy as their goals aligned. Last but not least, the 1st division led by the former Charlotte family member. He now called himself Dogtooth. Katakuri dropping his family name. The Mochi user led a division which consisted of Snow user Monet and the new addition of Capone Bead, the Living Castle. That rounded up the divisions, but there were still 3 important people in his crew, his queens. Princess Viola, the actual princess of Dressrosa who bonded with Luffy through initially being a political relationship, it had now grown into more. Nico Robin, the woman who can read poneglyphs. Initially she was shy and reserved, but with the friendship she developed with Hancock, she had become a monster in her own right, a monster in the bedroom. Then his first love, Boa Hancock. She was clearly the main lover of Luffy, though luckily, the ladies didn't mind. She was beautiful, caring, powerful, and amazing. And Luffy thought about it and he does not remember when the last time she was serious in battle. Scary. Finally there was the top, the pinnacle of the Straw Hat, Grand Armada. Monkey D. Luffy himself. Now, imagine this. 6 months before the fated day, it was enough time for the crew to get even stronger. 6 months before the question can be answered, Mugiwara or Shirahige. Imagine a 6-month stronger Buggy the Clown under the guidance of powerhouses. Imagine a powered up from the likes of the former Cypher Pole agents under the direct training of a Rob Lucci who has a heart. Imagine an entire Fishman division which had the trident of Aladdin, Arlong and Jinbei as their guiding force. Imagine the Soul Prince unleashing his full potential in a battlefield full of troubled forces. Giants once again fighting as pirates. Minks joining a world-changing war. A serious Gecko Moria and Guild Tessero, Crocodile fighting for a purpose. The Queens in action. Yuru against Diamond. Mochi against Phoenix. Rubber against Quake. Who is to be king? 6 months, just imagine. But before that, after the meeting adjourned, Luffy relaxed for a little bit. So why Buggy? Hancock sat on Luffy's lap. He was speaking to Hancock and Katakuri, the 2 people in charge when he was not available. He has a way of getting lucky. Bet you if Bakura touched him for his luck, she'll have limitless powers. Is that so? Katakuri rubbed his chin, his pelican-like mouth exposed for all the world. No longer was he ashamed of it. In a crew filled with people of different shapes and forms, what was there a need to be ashamed of? I actually met him early on and nudged him in the right direction. He's stronger than he lets off. I trust you, babe. Regardless, Luffy had one more person to go after. I had to travel somewhere by myself. Luffy said, getting up and moving his lady to the side. Where are you going, babe? Hancock was curious as to where her lover was going. Are you sure you should leave by yourself at this tumultuous time, Captain? Katakuri was curious as well. I'll be fine. Where I'm going no marine or pirate will bother me. Plus he would be a great addition to my crew. Who? The Straw Hat Captain gave a passionate kiss to Hancock, and he jokingly offered one to Katakuri, to which the man gave him a dead-panned look. He then made his way to the dock, trying to locate Viola and Robin to tell them of his solo mission. But before getting too far from Hancock and Katakuri, "You'll see," was all he said that the duo heard. Thought to himself, a massive smile over his face, his skin tingling in excitement at his destination. It was time to get him, time to go to Burka. Burka. It was a breezy day in the South Skypia district of Burka. A man with a straw hat was casually eating a meal at a local restaurant. Even he had to admit that these were some good food. Maybe he'll ask for some recipe to send down to Zeph. Does the meal satisfy you, Mr. Blue Sea? The waitress asked. It was not often that the Sky people get visitors from the Blue Sea, and when they do, they treat them like absolute divine beings. Sure it does, thank you again for the meal. Luffy reached into his pocket and paid for his meal with golden coins. It had become a habit to double the amount of his tab, just something to give back to the community. Luffy got up, thanked the staff once more. The captain made his way outside of the restaurant, met by a crowd of curious BeerCon citizens. They all looked at him with admiration and curiosity. Luffy enjoyed the stares, but he was really after one thing in his Sky Island visit. His goal was located in a monastery where a lone man upheld his practices and upheld his godly self-worth. Luffy made his way to said monastery. It was massive, made with a large amount of gold. To the people of the sky, gold was a common luxury. He noticed that the crowd which had followed him throughout his time in Skypie dispersed once he entered the premise of the monastery. Luffy stood in the gigantic front door. He seemed like a dwarf when standing next to the entranceway. He knocked 3 times and then, nothing but silence. Suddenly the door swung open, a hint of electrical current surging through the door, possibly to mechanize it. "Human of the blue sea, what brings you to my sky?" A commanding voice echoed throughout the massive hall. Luffy nodded that the ego of the man was humongous, even a year before destroying his own homeland. "I have come to speak to Enel," Luffy said casually, emphasizing the lack of respect for his name. When Luffy fought the Thunder God in his timeline, the egotistical bastard was so full of himself that it was easy to enrage him. This was his approach here, probably going to need to fight Enel then beat him until he joins. Simple enough, right? "You dare refer to me by my mortal name?" There was tremor in his voice, yet he retained his composure. Enel jumped from the balcony which he had been standing on and landed in front of Luffy. "Tell me, Blue Sea Man, what do you need to speak to me for?" Luffy noted that Enel did not care for his name. By the end of the day, he'll turn that around. "I came to invite you into my armada. For you see, I am aiming for the king of all the Blue Seas pirates. And I know that you will be a great asset in my fighting force." Luffy phased around the room, not looking at Enel as he admired the architecture. "Yahahaha." Enel laughed for a good minute, doubling over as his stomach hurts. "I haven't had a good laugh like that in ages." Enel finally stopped laughing, and yet the Straw Hat Captain remained unfazed. "You see my reaction, Blue Sea Man? That is my answer to your outrageous request." Enel proceeded to deliver a divan, a sitting bed, using crackles of electricity. Luffy noted that Enel was already proficient with his devil fruit. More than likely the 8 years since destroying his own homeland, the Thunder user became really lazy. He found no competition and just messed around, playing with people's lives like some sort of puppeteer. Though Luffy's goal was simple: stop the God Complex before he gets out of control. The perfect time to do this is to catch him before going ballistic and destroying the kingdom of Burka. Enel laid on his side casually eating a bowl of grapes which floated along with the divan. Luffy noted that Enel's appearance did not have much difference. He still had his 4 drum accessory pierced over his back, his earlobe were still hanging low, and he still had the same smug look on his face. "I'm sure we can come to an arrangement. Here in the sky your reign is supreme. Sure, but don't you want to test your limits? In the Blue Sea there are literal people who can shake the world, excrete magma, control darkness, even light with their own hands." A quake person you say? Magma. Darkness. Light? Enel sat up. Luffy finally reached him. No, it does not matter, for I know I am supreme." "Sure you are." In a blink of an eye, Enel left a trail of electricity behind him, swiftly appearing in front of Luffy. They were inches from one another where the godly man was enraged. "Tell me, Blue Sea, what color do you bleed?" Enel must have been insulted by Luffy's rhetoric. It was hilarious, yet Luffy kept a straight face as Enel launched a 100-volt thunderstrike. But something odd happened, to the godly man at least, as his electrical one-shot man killer had absolutely no effect on Luffy. "Red, but you'll never get any out of me." Luffy had a smile on his face now, having the beer can in the palm of his hands. Another round of thunderstrike, each one having a higher voltage than the last, yet Luffy was not affected. The Straw Hat Captain even yawned in boredom, as the over-reliant Logia was using up all his thunderstrike techniques without any effect. What the hell? For once, the Thunder user was shook. "You know the Quake Man, I'm going to war with him. And I'm not planning on losing." The determination was there, and Enel noted the man's resolve. "Tell me your name." Enel finally yielded. For all his years as a self-anointed deity, he has never met a man that stood up to his wrath. "Monkey D. Luffy, future king of pirates." Luffy said it with such ease that Enel smiled. He knew it. He knew that Enel would ask for his name before the end of the day. Why? Because he freaking Mugiwara Luffy. "Luffy. It's got a ring to it, but I'm sorry to say, but you shall die here." In the sky, Enel suddenly expanded into a massive blue beast made of pure lightning. Luffy remembered this form, and it was annoying. So maybe he should slap some sense into Enel, make him realize that there was no point to resist. 100 million volt Amaru. The technique was impressive, but Luffy remembered his Amaru form was bigger, probably twice the size of what he was now. "If you lose to me, Enel, you join me." Luffy inflated his muscle balloon, and air twirled around him momentarily obstructing Enel's view. But once the air cleared, it revealed Luffy, Gear 4th, bound man. In Luffy's mind, he might as well overpower Enel so he would join him. He wondered if it would work. I'll never lose to anyone. Enel's anger brought his massive palm forward, which Luffy met with a palm strike. It was a clash between Amaru and bound man. But rubber beats electricity. So Luffy's palm went through the arm of Amaru, destroying it until his palm connected with Enel, forcing him out of his Amaru form. The god was knocked to the farthest wall of his own temple. The shock in his face was evident. Luffy returned to his normal form, approaching Enel. As he got to him, he squatted in front of the Thunder User, looking at him with the smile which had become so annoying to Enel. Enel felt a trickle of liquid flow from his mouth. Red substance escaped him. He was bleeding? Luffy just stared at Enel, waiting for his answer. The god thought he was invisible, yet Luffy just showed him firsthand, with only one palm strike, that this was not the case. For a good minute Enel pondered the new reality which the Straw Hat Man just brought to him. There was a whole world which challenged his godly abilities. Then Enel slowly got up, wiping the blood which escaped from his mouth. Fine Mugiwara, I'll join you. It's Captain, by the way, where are your people? I'm not going to call you. Luffy raised his eyebrows as if to ask, go on then, fine Captain. I have disciples but they are all weaklings. Call them over, I want to meet them. Luffy now took the divan of Enel's, laying on it. What a power move. Fine, Enel gritted between his teeth. He brought his hand into the sky and launched a thunder strike straight up. This was the signal. At first it was quiet, but it couldn't have been more than 2 minutes when rumbling outside. Suddenly 4 people emerged through the front door, all of which took a bow before even looking at who they were bowing to. Satori, Shira, and Gedatsu. Enel stated, pointing at each one. Had thick shades and still the bald head which he had before, his blade still over his back. Satori was as plump as a grape. He had multiple balls in his back. Then Shira, who wore his goggles and helmet combo. Last was Defatsu, who had a funky hairstyle choice. We are here, God! Exclaimed the foursome, though Luffy was merely amused. Hello, my name is Luffy and I am bringing Enel with me to the Blue Sea. Want to come? The shock in their faces was amazing. Nobody in all of Skypiea expected their self-proclaimed deity to lose to anyone, ever. Yes. Wherever God goes, we go, answered for the group. Excellent. But don't call him God, it's weird. Call him Commander or something like that. Luffy then got up from the divan, where Enel plopped down on his seat. Take a day to gather your things. And bring as much of your dials with you. We sail tomorrow. Luffy then casually walked out of the building. As he stepped out, he was met with an overwhelming round of applause, though most notably of Pegasus riding man in a knight's armor. Thank you, was all he said, but Luffy knew the importance of this man, for he was Gonfall. A sea of people crowded him, forcing him to move on from the elderly warrior. Gonfall didn't know it yet, but in another life, he was real good friends with the Straw Hats. But the current god of Skypiea needs to watch out for his people, so therefore, Luffy will forego their surefire friendship. An eventful day wouldn't be complete with an unexpected surprise. Take me with you. A young energetic kid approached Luffy, a massive bazooka over his back and his face was covered by a tribal mask. He rode a wave board and Luffy knew immediately who it was. No kid, go home. Luffy responded as he laid on the hammock along his ship. He had borrowed one of Tom's ships to ensure that the knock-up stream won't destroy it. He didn't want to have kids for the war, especially where they were going. I am not a kid, exclaimed the young man, removing his mask and revealing a red bandana over his head. Listen kid, where we are going, you don't want to be involved. Luffy took a heavy sigh as he realized the kid was not leaving. He got up from his hammock and looked at the young man, recognizing him by his facial feature, Wiper. Come on man, I need to go stronger, and if you were the one to beat the Beercon Thunder God, then you must be a powerful Blue Sea person. I want to be stronger. Plus I can be useful. I can make your dials 10 times better than they are now. He drove a hard sail, but Luffy could not do it in good conscience. Alright kid. Fine, listen. Tomorrow at sundown, we depart. Say you goodbyes and meet us here. Don't be later or we are leaving you. Yes captain. The young Shandian warrior ran back to his village. Luffy didn't say it, but they were actually leaving at noon, where the Shandian warrior would learn when it was too late. Luffy returned to his hammock where he continued his nap, thoughts of his grand scheme circling his mind. Come the next day and Luffy was met with another surprise. A hulking man was waiting on the deck of his ship. His attire was that of a monk. He was of Beerkhan descent and heard of Luffy's triumph with the Thunder God. "Ah, Captain Mugiwara, I wish to join your crew. I have become curious about the Blue Sea and wish to see all of its wonders with my own eyes." Luffy knew who it was but didn't want to just say people's name without them telling him first. "Sure, you may come, but who are you?" He acted like he didn't know, but he knew it was Yorog, a monk of the Beerkhan people. The hulking figure stood on both legs, showing how he was towering over Luffy. And yet the gentle giant still had a smile on his face. He remembered that well about Yorog, how he always smiled. "Welcome aboard, Yorog." Just like that, Luffy came away with Enel, his army, and Yorog. The 4 disciples of Enel came with massive backpacks, each holding Skypian dial technology. Those dials would really do wonders for the upcoming war. As the Straw Hats left the White Sea and back to the Blue Sea, Luffy suddenly sensed a familiar present. "What the fuck, Wiper?" he exclaimed, to which the young man jumped out of his hiding. "What the hell are you doing here?" asked Luffy. "I got my stuff like you told me and hopped on board. I was excited, that's all." To this Luffy deadpanned, forgetting to double check before departing. "Fine, but I'm going to pull a Mihawk and dump you at Zeph's." "What the hell is a Mihawk?" asked Enel out loud as he was balancing his golden long pole on the tip of his finger. "He is the sword god," answered Yorog. "His expertise reaches even our temples." Crazy how in a year's time, Enel would have destroyed the entire Beerkhan population. Would Yorog have been there, or would he have begun piracy? How time changes. So Luffy had to stop over the floating restaurant, Barati, but before that he wanted to check on his people, the original Straw Hats. Syrup Village. It was crazy as the young Usopp had become an athletic wonder. The young person had become the protector of the village, whose big mouth can now back up his words with his godlike aim. Thanks to Katakuri, Usopp has become an expert of sorts in observation hockey. It only took Katakuri one day to train the young man and he ran with it. "Ah, Captain Luffy. What brings you here? Where's the big grumpy?" Of course Usopp was referring to Katakuri. "Hey Usopp, I see you're doing well. He's not with me today, but hey, I got some stuff for you." Luffy noted that Usopp was being tailed by one particular blonde-haired young girl. Miss Kaya had developed feelings for the young Usopp, which was great. Luffy dropped a backpack full of all sorts of Skypian dials. "Whoa, these are amazing. What should I do with them?" Usopp was looking through the pile. "Use them, improve on them, do as you please." Luffy was going to ask Usopp if he wanted to go to Barati to train with the others, but maybe now is not the right time. Not with Usopp finally coming on his own. "Well, I'll be off now, Usopp. Just wanted to stop by and say hello." "Ah, already, Captain." "Bring me with you, Captain." Flashes of his younger self filled his mind as he remembered being the same young man who begged Shanks to take him along. He shook out of his memory and looked back at the young Usopp. "Are you sure?" Luffy was contemplating whether he should let him come. "Yeah. I want to be a great warrior of the sea. And you will be Usopp-san," exclaimed Kaya, who had been hiding behind a tree. She popped up to invigorate the confidence of Usopp. "Kaya-chan, you really think so?" At a young age, boys are oblivious to obvious signs of affection, so Usopp didn't notice that Kaya was blushing and stuttering from nervousness. "Yes. Yes, you will. Then yes, Captain, I am sure." To this Luffy replied with, "Okay, Usopp, but I can't take you to the front line yet. I have to first take you to my friend, who will train you until you are ready." Luffy chuckled in his mind at the thought of Zeph as a babysitter to all the children. "Alright, I'll tell my mom and then I'll meet you in a few, Captain." And that was how Usopp left his home village to grow into a great warrior of the sea. At first his mother was against it but eventually gave in, understanding that her child is looking for adventure. Kaya on the other hand took Usopp's his first kiss by giving him a quick peck on the lips. The young girl then ran as soon as she did so and said goodbye to Usopp. The young man was too shocked to react but Luffy hurried him along. "Everyone, this is Usopp." Luffy introduced the young man, to which Wiper immediately got close to him. as both were around the same age and they were both the youngest of the group. Enel was still doing his own thing, eating fruits and daydreaming, while the four disciples were doing regular wise orders. Enel was stubborn and didn't do meddling with the weak. Next stop, Shimotsuki village. Zoro had grown taller. The green-haired swordsman was currently doing curls with a tree. No joke. Well, you're still hot-blooded as ever. Luffy approached the young man and leaned against another tree, one in which was the same tree that they found him on all those months ago. Captain. Zoro dropped his stuff and ran towards Luffy, excited to see the Straw Hat Man. I knew Hawkeye would change his mind. Ah no. I'm not bringing you to the new world yet, but I want you to come with me to a place where you can become better, with people around your age. Alright, as long as I can be better. Zoro picked up his 3 swords, 2 of which were low grade while one was Wado Ichimonji. He must have inherited it after Kuina's supposed death. Oh yeah, Luffy knew. Everyone reports to him about everything all the time. He then grabbed a backpack full of his belongings and awaited for the captain's orders. Why do you have all your stuff with you? Asked Luffy. I knew someone would come for me, so I had to be ready. This broke Luffy's heart, as the young man had been waiting for a long time, with his stuff always ready to go. Let's go. Luffy ruffled the hair of the young Zoro, and led him toward his ship. Aboard the ship were the group, with Enel now bored out of his mind, but Usopp and Wiper were the troublemakers. They immediately took interest in Zoro and they invited him to join their little adventure group. It was quite funny really. But Zoro noticed Ohm and his giant sword. He then asked the disciple, do you know how to use that thing? Want to find out? Hell yeah. And thus Zoro found a sparring partner in the swordsman, Ohm. The last stop before going to the Bharati, Orange Town. Captain. The orange-haired girl immediately saw Luffy and ran to him, giving him a big hug. Luffy was surprised but laughed at the young girl. So it is time? Time for what? Well, Mr. Arlong told me that one day, I will come and join the Straw Hats, so it must be time if you are here. The young girl was clever. Well, what will your mom say, your sister? I told them about it a long time ago and they told me to follow my dreams. Which is to map the world, by the way. Is that right? Well, I'm not taking you to the new world yet. You have to prove yourself first. Nami then approached a broken cement pillar, one of which was left behind by a burned-down building. She then focused her palms, generating a powerful strike that would make Arlong proud. She then unleashed her palm, surface style, 100 palm true strike. Her palm barely touched the cement pillar but her strike caused the cement to crumble into thousands of tiny pieces. Impressive. You need to train more. Fine. So Nami got her things in order and went to tell her family the news. She then returned to the port where the group was waiting for her. She was introduced to everyone and immediately fit right in, joining Usopp and Wiper in developing new technology with the dials as well as Blue Sea technology. Someone was bound to discover something new when combining the worlds. Last stop, Bharati. You mean to tell me, you brought all these kids for me to watch? When Zeph said that he would repay Luffy somehow, he didn't imagine he would babysit a bunch of teenagers. Sanji was floating around Nami as the orange-haired teen had caught the attention of the love-struck young man. Zoro had found the deck of the Bharati to be the perfect place to train. For some reason, Sugar and Baby 5 would watch him train. Usopp and Wiper immediately found a spot to set up their inventions. They had been tweaking the dials and putting some adjustments to them. Yeah, thanks a bunch, old buddy. Luffy said as he ate a plate full of fine cuisine. The group had stopped for a moment to grab a meal. Fine, but we're even after this, Zeph proclaimed. Sure, said Luffy in between bites, and that was the end of that. Water 7 Luffy's mini-trip took him 2 weeks. In his trip he was able to bring his original crew where he knew where they would be. Wiper was unexpected but welcomed addition regardless. He managed to recruit Enel, Yoroge, Ohm, Satori, Shira, and Gedatsu. So Luffy transversed the distance from Bharati and returned to Water 7. It was there where he was met with a tight embrace by the Empress. Hey, how did you know I was here? Luffy said as he gave his woman a kiss. A woman always knows, said Hancock, as she gave way for Robin and Viola to say hi to Luffy. They each embraced him and gave him a passionate kiss. So this is who you wanted to get so badly, huh? Said Hancock as Enel passed by, looking around the dock. There were many interesting people, He wished to test his limits. "You, muscle beast, I wish to battle you." Enel called to Dice, which the big man accepted without much protest. The two fought there and then, to which Dice ended up fried. Enel's excitement was noticeable as he nearly asserted dominance in some of the members before moving on to the next. So many fresh fighters, he was in nirvana. "You there, octopus, I wish to battle you." And Enel proceeded to defeat Hatchin as well. He was more like slapping people around while he moved on to the next person. His 4 disciples were perfect for hyping him up. It was hilarious. Electricity, huh? Now Hancock understood why he brought him along. "You think we're ready now?" He put his arms around Robin and Viola as he walked his ladies through the streets of Water 7. "Oh yes, we are." Hancock opened the door for Luffy as they arrived at a building. Lucci's entire division was present. "Captain, welcome back," said Lucci, who got up and took a bow. His group took a bow along with their captain. "Hi everyone, what's going on here?" Luffy looked around, as the people were sitting around a wooden chest. It was opened and Luffy found what they were looking at. 3 devil fruits were the content of the chest. "How'd you get these?" Luffy observed the devil fruits and felt their power. If these were what he thought they were, then fate really did smile upon him. "Believe it or not, Captain, it washed up ashore and we found it on patrol. What do you want to do with it?" "Well, do you guys want it?" He looked at Lucci's division. Tanaka shook his head as he already had a devil fruit ability. Galdino did the same and so did Brule. Bluno and Khalifa already had fruit abilities as well. Virgo was unmoving as he did not believe in fruit ability. This left Kaku, Jabra and Lucci. "Hell yeah." Jabra grabbed one and took a bite out of it. Kaku was a bit hesitant, but he took a bite of another one. This left Lucci with the last remaining fruit. "Ah, what the hell." And Lucci took a bite out of the fruit and the effect was instantaneous. "You son of a bitch," Luffy said to time itself, as it was indeed stubborn. Kaku transformed into a giraffe. Jabra transformed into a wolf. And Lucci transformed into a leopard. This time it happened way earlier than it should have, and the people who were supposed to receive them, received them. Insane if you asked him. "I feel the power," exclaimed Lucci, to which the group began to admire his newfound power. "Get used to it, guys. I want you all to be 100% once we go to war." "Aye, Captain," said Lucci as he looked at his new form. Combine this with his deadly mastery in Rokushiki, he felt invisible. So Luffy walked out of the building with his queens, finally able to breathe for a moment. "Hey Lu-chan, I'll see you later." Robin gave Luffy a kiss on the lips. "I have to meet with some minks about poneglyphs." "I have to go too, I'm training the new recruits, keeping them in top shape." Hancock also gave Luffy a kiss, lingering for a moment. This left Luffy and Viola. "Are you going to try and get away from me also?" Luffy teased, to which she shook her head in a cute manner. "Nope, I actually asked them if I can have you to myself for the rest of today," said Viola innocently. "Oh, where would you like to go, princess?" "Me ice cream, then we can talk about what's coming after later." Viola winked and led the way, grabbing Luffy by the hand. He had a lot of work to deal with, especially with the coming war, but for now, he shall enjoy his time with Viola. He placed his arms around her and enjoyed her company, for the two had a wonderful date, along with an intense session afterwards. "Gah!" Madame Sherilyn of Fishman Island cried as she awoke from a vision of the impending war. "We have to warn him, I have to." She rummaged through her items, tossing everything around as she tried to locate the item she needed. She owed the Straw Hat Captain this, as he was able to rehabilitate her brother, who she really thought was a lost cause. Madame Sherilyn repeated her vision out loud as if to reinforce it in her mind. "A knife will fill the world with darkness, for the birth of the end is near. Blood and destruction will cover the air as one man will once again become his best. A faceless man and a passageway will put a halt to the pain." The last part of the prophecy caused tears to fill her eyes. To ensure the birth of the new age, a unification that has never been seen before. A Straw Hat man will have ice fill his veins as he will die from this very world. Straw Hat Armada, everything was ready, everything was coming together. 6 months passed in the blink of an eye. And these were the series of events that unfolded in that time frame. The first month was of course Luffy's mission to bring in Enel. The 3rd division was bolstered with the addition of new fruit users, a logia at that. And plans were developing in the wake of the coming war. A communication division was made along with a medical department. Positioning was set as there was a right, left and middle area for the upcoming war. Scout units were sent out to review the island where the battle would commence. Luffy brought up a mirror communication device over his mouth. Lucci, scout the island for us. Do not engage any enemy you happen to spot unless absolutely necessary. Aye, Captain. Lucci immediately activated his Soru, and disappeared in a blur. He had an important mission to be the initial scout of the unknown wasteland. It took him several days to travel to the island, and recognized that it was empty, not an ounce of life force anywhere. At least from his initial feeling of the island. The third commander was quick traveling through the massive wasteland in a matter of hours. It helped that he had a new power in the leopard devil fruit. Nothing but emptiness and rock formation all over. Though his mission had halted at the visual confirmation of the enemy, in fact it would seem that the enemy had a similar idea as a plump black-haired man and a well-dressed, kitchen knife-wielding person crossed his path. He wasn't going to reveal himself, but they seemed to be adept in observation hockey. The group were at a stalemate, each side not talking to one another. That was until the plump guy finally spoke up. Look, we'll turn back to our base now. We'll see you in a few months. The plump man feigned retreat, but instead, he whipped out his pistol, firing it towards Lucci. No teach, exclaimed his partner, knocking down the gun from his hands. Though it was too late, the trigger was already pulled. The third commander was quicker than a bullet, so he ducked his head and pressed forward. He wasn't supposed to engage, but these people were pushing it. Lucci got close, but the kitchen knife-wielding individual was quick enough so that his knife was mere inches from the face of the leopard. Something else was happening as the plump man had a strange expression about him. A maniacal smile over his face as he brought his pistol from Lucci to the back of his own crewmate's head. What the fuck? Lucci thought curiously, although he had to make a quick decision. Soru, he stepped sideways from the kitchen knife user, avoiding the blade, and used a Rokuogan to knock back the plump man. His gun fell far from where he stood. The kitchen knife-wielding man jumped toward his partner's aid. In a few months, said the kitchen knife man, and the duo turned away, running swiftly before disappeared in the distance. Lucci was too shocked to give chase. Not even at the fact that the plump man aimed to kill his own, but at the fact that he saved the kitchen knife-wielding man. It wasn't his problem if there was inner conflict in the Whitebeard pirates, so why the hell did he save the enemy? Reporting this back to the captain will be really strange. Lucci returned after some days to report his finding. Luffy visibly tensed at the mention of a man named Teach. Just as I thought. Luffy began. You did well, Lucci. The third commander was shocked at the captain's response. If we can, I want to emphasize that we will not kill unless absolutely necessary. And you exhibited that today in your encounter with Teach and Thatch. Thank you, Captain. Lucci, when it comes to it. Luffy got up, his eyes as serious as ever at the prospect of Teach becoming what he was in his former timeline. Kill Teach no matter what. Aye, Captain. You can count on me. Luffy touched Lucci in his shoulder and was glad. You are dismissed, Lucci. Get some rest. I heard you're doing good things with Haruden. You'll be surprised, Captain. Good night. In the second month, training sessions were intense. Mihawk would not let anyone make mistakes in the sword drill. Katakuri beat the crap out of everyone in his endurance course. Lucci continued on his tall task to teach the giants Rokushiki. Imagine the destruction of Haruden's Shigen. Damn. Brook kept the crew entertained at sundown with unique productions and plays every single day. Though he wasn't slacking on training either, as Mihawk and Brook would spar late into the night. Monet had a bright idea to send a request for help to Dressrosa, her friend would surely get it. Aladdin did the same after the daily formation training with the 4th Division. He sent for help to Fishman Island. Even though a good amount of powerful fishmen were already with the Straw Hats, what's the harm in a little more help? Hancock decided it was time for the Kuja tribe to show themselves to the world. With the backing of the powerhouse that is her lover, there is no fear in possible retribution with enemy forces. She called Sandersonia, the current Empress of Amazon Lily, and asked her if they could come. Brook got the bright idea to call Laboon's caretaker, Crocus, because they were short of doctors and he would be an amazing addition. In the 3rd month, Enel finally challenged the commanders. Luffy commanded the battles to occur in a deserted island as to save face for anyone who happened to lose to the electricity user. He didn't tell this to them as all he said was to minimize damage on Water 7. Only his queens knew the real reason, and Hancock wanted to fight the Thunder user as well. 10. Buggy must have died when absorbing one single thunderbolt. He stood no chance. Kabaji and Moji were with him and carted him off in a wheelchair. "Captain, are you dead?" "Shut up, Kabaji. This just means I need to get stronger." Despite losing terribly, Buggy was elated, for he found that he needed more to grow. 9. Moria put up a fight but ultimately lost to the light produced by the lightning. He could not produce his shadows quick enough. Moria did not bring anyone with him, as his lack of trust was still evident. 8. Amazingly, Haruden and Enel had an intense back and forth, as the giant's resistance was strong. But due to Enel's Amaru technique, he was able to get a yield from Haruden. 7. Guild had brought an armor of gold, but Enel was able to pierce through the armor with his superheated thunder strikes. He too went into the fight alone. 6. Crocodile against Enel was a fun match, as it went on for days. Though ultimately Enel won by bombarding Crocodile with so much electricity that his sand would all turn to glass. The sand user eventually couldn't keep up, and they had a stare down after the battle. Crocodile laughed, Enel laughed, and the duo became sort of instantaneous friends. Go figures. 5. Brook took a look into Enel's soul in the first second of the battle, left, and surrendered after seeing what was in Enel's soul. A yearning for acceptance, a challenge and family. "We are what you are looking for," Brook simply said before leaving the island. Enel raised his eye. Let the skeleton man get to him. 4. Arlong did all he could, using all of his techniques to beat Enel, but typing is not in his favor. For electricity is very strong against him. Thus Arlong regretfully lost. Jinbei was with Arlong as he had lost to Enel earlier. He did not challenge him again. Hancock was up next with Luffy present. He was simply watching as he wanted her to fight to her heart's content. It started off fine, her observation had improved. But there was a problem. Enel did not lust for anything, man, woman, he did not care for anything but himself. Maybe putting a mirror in front of him would then allow Hancock to turn him into stone. The fight went on for almost a day, with Luffy holding Hancock as he could tell that she was about to use it. Enough. Immediately Hancock understood what he meant. Now wasn't the time to use it, this was for the war. Hancock ceded and Enel won once again. Though he was a bit pissed as he won by technicality, he wanted to win for real. Maybe next time. 3. Lucci was up next and he brought Galdino with him. It was the perfect opportunity to try his new leopard zone. He was quick, he overshot most of his moves, and ultimately lost to the Thunder user due to his inexperience. "We got to do this again." Lucci extended a handshake to which Enel accepted. "Welcome to the crew." In each fight, Enel was starting to get warmer and warmer to the idea of becoming part of this crew. All these people were strong, accepting, and they wanted him. They could challenge his superiority complex and knock some sense into him. It was a fresh feeling. 2. Now it was Mihawk. Unfortunately for Enel, that was where his challenge would end as he finally lost. Don't get it wrong, it was an intense battle, but the advanced armament and observation combined was too much for Enel as he stared down the tip of Mihawk's blade. "Welcome aboard." Mihawk retrieved his blade and put it on his back. He began to walk away. 1. What about the first commander? He wanted to test himself against the second strongest only to Mugiwara. "Don't bother." Mihawk stopped in his steps. "If you could not defeat me, then you won't even touch him." A testament of Katakuri's abnormal growth and the second best fighter in the entire Grand Armada. He constantly trained with Mihawk and Lucci, and when the captain was available, he would train with him also. "So this is my limit." Enel looked into the sky. "Swordsman. Show me how to turn my skin into black resin." Mihawk smiled at the request, so Enel was trying to learn Haki. What is the world going to become with Enel as Haki user? 0. Now on to the 4th month. The Armada received ships of people joining their cause. From word of mouth and recommendations, warriors, underworld, and pirates alike have traveled to Water 7. Warriors from Dressrosa led by Kairos himself, and he also brought Pika with him, the new head of Dressrosa's military force. "I can't believe you are all here." Luffy met them at the dock, surprised at the arrival of reinforcement. "We had to be here for you as you were there for us, Mugiwara," said Kairos, putting his fist over his heart. Pika's voice was still annoying, nodded in agreement. "It is because of you that I was given a second chance." Luffy thanked the new arrivals as warships of capable fighting men and women arrived. Fishman Island had given their pirate force to the Straw Hats, and yet they brought it upon themselves to bring in Fisher Tiger, along with an army of merfolks and fish people. "I can't even begin. Mugiwara, we owe you our lives, and especially me. We are with you no matter what," was all Fisher Tiger had to say as the duo embraced. Alabasta brought in Pell himself, along with a large army with him. "Mugiwara, King Cobra and your fiancée, Princess Vivi, send their regards. As soon as we received word that you were going to war, we had to come assist you immediately." Luffy immediately noticed Crocodile hovering. Did he really ask help? Go figure. The Kujas from Amazon Lily extended their fighting force to aid their sister, a former empress. Luffy and Hancock welcomed the addition into the fold. But something strange happened. Katakuri was present and awaited the arrival of Sandersonia, the current empress of Amazon Lily. And the duo disappeared together, somewhere. What was that about? Pirates from the first half of the Grand Line, wanting to be part of history, came as well. And underworld members that Beeg called personally, as he put it, he doesn't want to die just yet in a war with Whitebeard. So it is in his best interest to call in people that could help his survival. Surprisingly enough, Brook managed to contact Crocus, who was more than happy to come and see Laboon once more. Crocus did take Luffy's suggestion and went to a winter island known as Drum Island. He met the other clever doctors and began to collaborate with them. Once Crocus was called by Brook. Drive Hirulik along with Dr. Kureha were more than happy to come. As Dr. Hirulik put it, a war is the playground of a doctor. More importantly, Crocus did find the blue-nosed reindeer, and the young doctor's apprentice was as bashful as ever. He continued to fear humans due to treating him as a monster. Luffy caught wind of this and began to think of a way to convince the young reindeer to stay at Zeph's for the duration of the war, as he does not need to get involved just yet. The additional forces were put into the different crews to bolster their numbers, but the majority of the main battles will occur with the commanders and their main forces. Now they had the numbers that could rival him, and additional fighting powerhouses in Fisher Tiger, Pell, Pika and Kairos. Women power in the Kuja tribe's entire fighting force. And powerful doctors in Dr. Hirulik, Dr. Crocus, Dr. Kureha, and apprentice, the bashful Tony Chopper. On the 5th month, Tom came through with providing the crews with their ships. Luffy of course got his 1000 Sunny, and admittedly it was just as he remembered. It perfectly encompassed the memory of his past life, but the content of the ship were now his queens. They each had their quarters and Luffy would sleep with a different lady at night. In Sunday, which is Luffy's favorite day, they would be in one room and go at it. Katakuri's ship was a steamship that had 2 giant rotating mochi donuts. It was used in conjunction with his devil fruit ability to keep his ship running. Though in the event that Katakuri was not available, steam power was ready for use. It was called the Mochi Express. Mihawk was the only person in his division as he liked it this way. His ship was a mere coffin, which was powered by an electric engine, invented by Frankie. Mihawk simply named his ship Coffin for obvious reasons. Lucci's ship was a stealth ship, designed for speed and infiltration. It was jet black in color and powered by Galdino's wax ability. He used his wax to create a turbine of sorts to which was used to generate power for their ship. It was known as the Supercat. Arlong of course had his shark-shaped ship Perfect Double for a submersible. It was known as the Great White. Brook had the grandest show, with of course the giant stage at its belly to bring the show on their trip. The ship was magnificent in stature, perfect for the rockstar. Crocodile had a sand oasis, a ship that he used in conjunction with his abilities. It housed a massive powerlifting facility for the powerhouses in his crew. Guild, who generously gave the parts of Grand Tessero in order to make the other ships of the crew a possibility. His ship is the Grand Tessero 2.0. It still retained the massive giant roulette wheel in the middle of the ship. Haruden of course had a Viking-style ship, big enough to fit the giants in his crew. Dory and Brogy were surprised at the masterful work of the tiny carpenters of Water 7. Moria's ship was a smaller version of Thriller Bark. and the shadow user covered his ship with a lot of holes and openings to force the enemy's shadows. Last but not least was Buggy, whose ship was a carnival of sorts. Ted the Clown at first, but he really put in the work, and he will surprise a lot of people during the war. Oh wait, there was actually one more. The Arc Maxim was created, as one of the ships that Luffy specifically asked Tom to build. It was a ship powered by electricity and it was given to Enel. The Thunder user never really felt at home until he joined the Straw Hats. He could really learn to enjoy the company of the Blue Sea people, who were now, as he would never admit this out loud, his people. His crew consisted of his original disciple, Yorogue, and a combination of people from the volunteers from all over the world. What's special about his ship is that it flew. Sky coverage was in their back pocket, excellent. On the last night before heading out to the island where the war was going to take place, people were getting last-minute tactics from one another, nerves were high, but morale was to the top. Unlikely conversations were taking place between people from different walks of life, but the Straw Hats were a tight-knit group, and that was how Luffy liked it. Tanaka and Gem were having a conversation, Gladius and Ohm were discussing positioning in the battlefield, Yorogue and Dice were talking strategy. A crazy group of different people and personality, all under the umbrella of Straw Hat Luffy. Viola and Brûlé were going over calls for battle. Kairos was impressed by the massive fighting force that they have gathered. He could see how this force could stand toe-to-toe with a world power. Hey, how do you know Mugiwara? Fisher Tiger sat next to Kairos as they were having dinner. Pell also joined them. He saved my country. Oh same, and changed my view of the world, was Fisher Tiger's response. He did that for you guys too? And the trio laughed at the coincidence. Crocus passed by and overhearing their conversation he decided to add on. He took the giant whale away from my care. Which caused confusion between the trio, though later on realizing that he meant Laboon. A tall green-haired beauty passed them as well, adding her own input on the subject. He banged my sister, added Sandersonia, to which they all laughed heartily. Medical division, the doctors were getting together and exchanging information. A workflow was getting put together. They were trying to figure out the best way to treat the injured for the upcoming war. Luffy had already spoken with the additional doctor, introducing himself to each one. He pulled Dr. Hiralik to the side and asked him if he wanted Chopper with him during the war. Honestly, Captain, no, I do not, replied the doctor, but he has nowhere else to go. What if I tell you I can keep him safe? To this, the doctor agreed and Luffy made arrangements to meet the blue-nosed reindeer. Dr. Hiralik introduced them and left Chopper to speak with Luffy. Hey, my name is Luffy. What is yours? Luffy had to be gentle with the young Chopper, as he was still fresh on the pain in which he suffered from humans. Tony Chopper, replied the reindeer bashfully. Hey Chopper, say, would you care to step away from all this craziness for some time? Meet some children around your age? Make new friends? Asked Luffy. I can't leave Dr. Hiralik, replied Chopper. No, you are not going to leave him. Just think of it as a retreat. A vacation of sorts. Luffy followed the change in expression in Chopper's young face. Is there candy? Asked the curious reindeer. Oh yeah, lots. Chopper contemplated the offer. Are the people nice there? The reindeer asked bashfully, to which Luffy responded with, only the nicest and most caring people I know. After a few minutes, Chopper finally nodded in agreement. Alright, excellent. Well, my friend Blueno will bring you to Zeph. Later that day, Blueno reported to Luffy with his mission. Zeph wanted to relay something to you, Captain. What was it? Asked Luffy, despite knowing full well what it was about. Please excuse my tone, but he said, not another one? She. Of course, he would. Thanks, Blueno. Chopper was somewhere safe, not in the middle of a war. With the commanders, so we sailed tomorrow. Buggy trembled in his chair, as he was surrounded by the commanders of the Grand Armada. You'll be fine, Buggy. You've grown so much since you first came onto the crew. It was Brook who eased Buggy's worries, for the Soul King did not have any fear in his eyes, as he doesn't have any eyes. Yo-ho-ho bone jokes. I believe we'll be fine, our captain will be king. Hancock had joined the commander's meeting as one of the most powerful members of the Straw Hats. She also held the queen rank in the Armada, which meant she was basically above Katakuri in rank. In no way does anyone take the Phoenix from me. I have marked him as my enemy. Katakori's blood boiled at the thought of engaging Marco. At first glance, Katakori felt an intense aura with the first commander of the Whitebeard pirates, and there was no way anyone else could battle him. Fine, but I will handle the second in command. This was now Enel, who spoke up to no one's protest. But Mihawk had an interesting input on the matter. He was on the corner and sharpening his blade. It doesn't matter who fights who, all we need to do is win. To make our captain king, we must win. To that a chorus of agreement. I never thought I could find a group of people that I would call my friends again. If you could believe it, Moria had tears flowing from his eyes. You guys have been the closest I've been to anyone in my time since being wiped out by Kaido. If you die in the battlefield, I'll kill you myself, declared Moria. Yahaha. I agree with the Shadow Man, declared Enel, who had become an integral power in their fighting force. He was now the 11th commander of the Straw Hat Grand Armada. If you were all to die, then you are not worth the flag which we represent. This was Crocodile, who continued to smoke his tobacco. Right, commented Hancock. Good point, Crocodile. Haruden chimed in with a hearty laugh. As one of the newer additions, I really found you all to be very welcoming and helpful. This is true, as I never tried to apply myself and my devil fruit, other than overwhelming the enemies with my gold. But now, I've grown tenfold. Guild crossed his legs as he took a sip of his drink. Then a moment of silence as the group digested their current predicament. Hey, let's go around and remember our favorite moments so far in this crew. This was Brook who suggested this. Let me start. I was stuck in the Florian Triangle for 40 years. And probably many more. So my favorite moment so far is Captain saving me in a lifetime of loneliness. Multiple people who sat close to him patted him on the back. 40 years in isolation. That is insane. I'll go, when Lucci trained me in Rokushiki, added Haruden as he formed his hands into a fist. Mine is getting the life beaten out of me. It was a wake-up call that I need to be better, was Crocodile's addition to the conversation. Katakori over there put a number on me. Guild commented. He woke me up and helped me realize that I was lacking in so many areas. That reminds me, Guild, we still need to have a rematch, said Crocodile, remembering that embarrassing loss to the gold user in the Grand Tessero. I want a rematch with Lucci, exclaimed Moria. Yeah? Well, I want to beat Hancock, Mihawk, and Katakori, but that's not happening anytime soon, replied Lucci, who was glad he was being shouted out. In your dreams, Lucci, exclaimed Hancock, laughing at the third commander. I only want to become the best swordsman in the world. That will be my favorite memory, added Mihawk. You probably already are the best swordsman. Katakori spoke up, forgetting his animosity with Marco for only that moment. He then addressed everyone in that room. You are all the best in the world at what you do. They all agreed to this as there was no way they could lose the war, at least in their mind. Anyway, I'm going to get some rest. We have a long trip ahead of us. The group dispersed into their separate ships, checks to ensure that everyone was prepared. For that night, Hancock joined Luffy, embracing him tightly as the prospect of the war was becoming more and more of a reality. She swore to herself that she was going to fuck his brains out as if it were their last. Docks a few days before departing, at the number 7 dock of Water 7, Luffy invited 4 people to join him for a very important meeting. He had called them a few hours earlier to meet with him. Captain Chan. What can I do for you? The first person to arrive was Bentham, or as he was better known by his Okama name, Bonclay. He was closely followed by Bluno, who took a kneel in front of Luffy. Captain, I was informed by Lucci to meet you here. Then another person arrived. Captain Ya, what is going on? This was Law speaking as he was holding both hands behind his head. There was something noticeably different about him as he seems to have gotten taller. I won't forgive you for tricking me the first time we met, Captain. It was Bonnie who Luffy called to join them in the meeting. Luffy turned from looking at the horizon and immediately noticed Law's change. Oh, this? Bonnie Ya manipulated my age. There was no point of remaining young and held back by my age. So I asked her to make me older. Of course, it makes sense. Law was a genius of sorts. He was the man responsible for getting the alliance close to Kaido. Then he remembered his loss. Getting close to death. The death of his friends. But he shook the thought out of his mind. I need you all to do something very important for me, and you will all have to be at the right place, at the right time. The group nodded at the captain's special orders. So here it is. Listen carefully as I will only say this once. Marineford panic echoed throughout the entire Marine headquarters as thousands of Marines were shuffling to their battle station. News broke out of a clash between Whitebeard and Mugiwara mere minutes ago. It was released by Big News Morgan. Sengoku thought that the old bird was either helping the pirates or was really getting rusty in obtaining the news, as this cataclysmic event was only revealed to them a few minutes ago. All personnel to your battle stations, we sail in 20 minutes. A voice echoed throughout the base and Sengoku was raking his brain. Why would Whitebeard want to fight a pirate below him like Mugiwara? Whitebeard was an emperor of the sea. He was a few road poneglyphs away from the One Piece. Sir, Admiral Zephyr is ready to depart. Admiral Akainu and Admiral Aokiji are a few minutes from getting to their ships. Fuck, we can't let this happen. Sengoku continued to rack his brain as he could not get an answer to why this is happening. Garp? He exclaimed, as he knew the old man had a relation to Mugiwara. Sengoku? Vice Admiral Garp joined the fleet admiral in walking briskly to their battleship. What the hell is your grandson up to? Yelled Sengoku, into which Garp replied by simply saying, "Beats me," and shrugged, snickering to himself at the action of his grandson. All personnel to your battle stations, we sail in 15 minutes. Fuck. Sengoku knew that by the time they got to the location of the battle, the entire world could be swallowed by tsunamis, earthquakes, fissures, and so on due to the destructive power of Whitebeard. This fight can't happen, and yet by the time they arrive, it could be too late. Sir, Admiral Aokiji has disappeared with all communications off. Though more pressing, sir, is that Admiral Akainu and Admiral Zephyr have both sailed ahead of the fleet and are currently outside of the Gate of Justice. They are going at the target location at a rapid rate and are declining any orders to turn back. A random marine gave Sengoku the update, to which the fleet admiral could pull all the hair out of his head. The goddamn fanatics. A united force is better than this divided force bullshit. All personnel to your battle stations, we sail in 10 minutes. Young ones, huh? I remember when we used to be hot-blooded young marines like those two. Was Garp's comment, though, before having the chance to yell at his casual take on the situation. Another bad news came. Sir, Admiral Akainu and Admiral Zephyr have each lost a battleship each in their 20 ships fleet. The person responsible is currently not letting them pass. Who would be stupid enough to get in the way of two Navy admirals? Sengoku asked out loud, to which Garp had a smirk over his face. It's him, of course, Garp replied knowingly. Outside of the gates of justice, get out of the way, red-haired. This came from Zephyr, who stood at the front of his ship. They had history from Sabaody, where he deflected the Marine Admiral from chasing after Luffy, Arlong, and Mihawk. I will go through you, warned the Marine Admiral. Red-haired. Get the fuck out of my way, exclaimed Admiral Akainu. The hot-blooded Marine Admiral was on his wits' end, as 6 months ago he wanted to put on a pin on Mugiwara, and now he was challenging emperors. Admirals. Shanks began. The aura in the air was so thick that many low-level Marines were passing out, as the three powerhouses were in a standoff. I'm sure we can come to an understanding. Red-haired, this is your last warning. I swear on everything I will kill you. Akainu's blood vessel was showing on the tip of his forehead as he was very agitated. This amused Lucky Roo as he pointed at it and laughed while Usopp joined in. Ben Beckham smirked at the sight. Sorry, but Shanks drew his blade, revealing his intention. Nobody will interfere with Faith. At the command of their captain, everyone switched gears. Usopp drew his gun, Lucky Roo pulled 2 pistols, and Ben Beckham drew his own sword. The rest of the red-haired pirates followed suit, and the time for joking has passed. Though a smaller marine ship got past the Red Force, Shanks noticed it, Ben Beckham noticed it, but they let it pass. For the person within the ship was important for the future. Admiral Akainu wrapped his arm in magma, not caring about anyone on the marine ship he was on. All he cared about was absolute justice, and if it meant destroying his own people, so be it. Admiral Zephyr covered his arm in armament, as the master user was ready to stretch his arms against the newly crowned Yonko. Sure. And Shanks wrapped both arms along with his sword in crackling red and black hockey. You think you know one-armed Shanks as a Yonko? Have you met two-armed Shanks? World Economy newspaper. The Albatross Zone user was currently going through the daily manuscript. One of his reporters entered, shuffling at his feet. "Sir Morgan, sir, Marines are here to interview you, sir." "Tell them to go away, I'm busy." Word traveled quickly, as Morgans was late in reporting the war between Mugiwara and Shirahige. A special someone was sent to deal with the incompetence of the journalist. "I can't leave without answers, Morgans." At the entrance of his office, there stood Vice Admiral Borsellino. He had a different aura about him, almost as if he took his job a little more seriously. "Well, I'll be damned." Morgans dropped everything he was doing and quickly got up. He attempted to toss his chair at the Vice Admiral to make a quick getaway. Light flashed in the room and Morgans found himself pinned against the floor of his office. All operations in the news central stopped, as people watched their boss in his office. "Back to work, fools," exclaimed Morgans, despite feeling an immense amount of pain at the bottom of Borsellino's foot. "So you were saying, Morgans?" asked the Vice Admiral. He really was different, more serious, scarier even. "What happened to the aloof light user?" I knew it was going to happen. Okay. I just prolonged the news because I thought Mugiwara would chicken out." This was a lie, of course, as back in Whole Cake Island, Morgans became a huge fan of Mugiwara for causing a ruckus in Big Mom's land. Although nobody needed to know about that. Fine. Borsellino released Morgans, but not before penetrating both of his wings. "Wi!" exclaimed the head of the World Economy newspaper. He stumbled into the ground as blood flowed freely from the fresh wound. "You might want to get that checked." Borsellino began to disappear into light particles, and Morgans, for future references. "Don't forget to report news of this magnitude again, got it?" With that, Borsellino disappeared as quickly as he arrived. Morgans nursed his wounds as he seethed in anger. "Damned Marines," thought the underground emperor. He was the man who controlled the news, damn it. To be made a mockery by Borsellino. "Fuck you, Borsellino," he exclaimed, knowing full well that the light user was long gone. "Attach," exclaimed Morgans, calling one of his chief reporters. "Yes, boss," responded the elderly photographer. "Make sure you get some good shots on that war. You hear? I got holes all over my body because of this damned war." "Yes, boss," loud and clear. Attach replied and disappeared, making his way to the place of war. A good photographer always found a way. "Show me what you are good at, Mugiwara," thought Morgans. Enland, an uncharted island of what will now be known as Enland, was the location that the Straw Hats selected to invite the Whitebeard pirates for war. The location was an empty wasteland with no life form. On the northern shore of the island, the Straw Hat Grand Armada has arrived, slowly filtering into the island. They have designated a home base of sorts on the northern shore, as the time for war is not for another day. "Set up camp," he commanded the other members of the crew. They had a long next couple of days, possibly weeks or even months. Luffy had set up his camp. His queen was elsewhere as he rested along a chair. This is getting really serious now. 6 months ago, it was just words, planning. But now, it was Robin who joined Luffy. She gave him a loving embrace, one of which Luffy looked forward to throughout his days of constant battle, meeting, training, and so forth. "Yeah, hey listen, Brûlé is going to be set up here to be our communication hub. Viola will be our visual coordinator. Dice and Galdino will stay back to watch the communication and medical units respectively. Do you want to?" Luffy was interrupted with a kiss on his lips, one that lingered for a long time. "I will be in the battlefield with everyone." "I thought so, but I just wanted to ask. You are so stubborn," Luffy said with a smile before kissing her once more. Robin was so amazing, so calm and collected, innocent but wild. She was exciting and kept him straight to his course. "This is why I love you." "And I you," responded Robin, and the duo shared a kiss. One thing led to another and they made sweet love all night. As quick as the night went by, it was finally done. Morning finally came and the Straw Hats were quietly preparing their gear. For they were all marching into a world-changing war, one of which will be talked about for ages. Luffy led the group along with Hancock and Katakuri. Just as planned, Viola and Brûlé stayed back along with Dice. They would be the information network for the crew. Dr. Hogback, Dr. Hiralik, Dr. Kureha, and Dr. Crocus headed their healer division, with Khalifa, Tanaka, and Absalom as runners. Galdino was their guardian. Hundreds of personnel are equipped with dials and fishman technology, as well as human technology. The human technology was thanks to their newest addition, Cyborg Frankie. The air was tense, which caused Luffy to speak up. "Listen everyone." He did not stop going forward. Not once did he look back. Instead he looked up. Buggy was tasked with keeping their flag in the air. "If ever you are in doubt, look at our flag. Just press forward and follow it. We will win no matter what." With his simple statement, the group eased up slightly, looking at the back of Captain's crest. It was their crest, their mark, their flag. Arriving in an open battlefield, Luffy received a call from their communication department. "They have arrived." It was Viola who spoke to the group, with Brule transmitting her image through mirror communicator. As she said so, rumbling from the distance became louder, as an army of pirates came from the other side of the island. Luffy could see him, Edward Newgate, whose mere presence caused the air to thicken. Despite the distance between them, he could tell that Whitebeard was looking at him, and he returned the favor. The two stared into each other for some time, each army stopping dead in their track. Each side waited for their commander's orders. All 16 commanders of Whitebeard were present, with possibly 20 of his allied commanders. Ors Jr. toward their side, while Luffy had Haruden, Dory, and Brogy on his side. In the front of Whitebeard's group, there stood Diamond Jozu, along with the vanguard unit, ready to go at the order of his captain. A sea of people covered the southern section of the battlefield, with people positioning on the left and right flank. The Straw Hats matched them with Crocodile's vanguard unit in the middle. He had placed Enel to lead the left flank while he had Lucci leading the right flank. Flamenco led the unit that would clash with Lucci's while Haruda led the unit that will face Enel. It did not matter who fought who, they needed to win to solidify their captain's claim in becoming king. While the opposing side needed to win to solidify their captain's position as the strongest man in the world. "Communication department ready," said Viola, which echoed throughout the allied forces. "Medic bay ready," said Dr. Hogback, who led the medical team. Despite having more qualified doctors, they elected him as his unorthodox methods could be the difference between life and death. "Keep each other safe," commanded Luffy to everyone, then silence. Buggy was looking around, looking through the faces of each person on his side. His grip fell through as the flag which he held up nearly fell from his grasp. He caught it with both hands as the flag nearly fell from its high point. Buggy sighed in relief but was now met with another predicament. His pistol was falling from its holster, and it did so but he was able to catch it with his feet. Another sigh of relief but it was quickly replaced with shock as his big toe caught the trigger, causing the gun to fire. Imagine a quiet field, where everyone was on edge, and everyone heard gunfire. At first, there seemed to be no reaction, but adrenaline rushed in and both sides were fired up. They used the gunfire as the catalyst for the World War. "Go everyone, for Pops!" yelled Jozu from the side of Whitebeard, thinking that the side of Mugiwara opened fire first. People from his pirate crew charged forward, blazing passion following with each step. "Let's go!" yelled Crocodile, his vanguard unit close behind him. The 6th commander had a personal grudge against him, so it was only natural he went straight for the Yonko, and he had the perfect plan as his body turned into sand. "Oh," thought Buggy, his facial expression was that of immense shock, for he was the reason that the war started. It had to start somehow, he thought to himself. The war of Straw Hat pirates against the Whitebeard pirates was finally underway, Enland. Mass of people charged forward, an initial clash was inevitable and the Enland War would properly commence. As the two opposing sides clashed in the middle of the wasteland, Jozu's eyes were set, as he attempted to clash with Crocodile but the sand user turned into sand, using his element to merge with the ground to skip through the forces and go straight for the Yonko. Crocodile re-emerged mere inches from Whitebeard, who stood firmly with his signature Bacento. The Yonko noticed him but did not acknowledge his attempt to smite him. "Crocodile on your 9. Came in a call from Viola. Crocodile realized that Whitebeard did not move because Flower Sword was there to intercept him. "Vista." The 5th commander blew back Crocodile by catching his golden hook with his dual blade, and tossing him away from his captain. "You're never going to touch my father," claimed the 4th commander of the Whitebeard pirates, Flower Sword, Vista. "Watch me." Crocodile had a smirk on his face, as he had a mini sand tornado on one hand. He was behind enemy lines but he did not care, Crocodile was out for Whitebeard's head. He threw the sand tornado straight into the face of Vista but was met by a countering rotation of flower petals. The sand dissipated but Crocodile appeared from the dust, bringing his golden hook straight to the face of Vista. Luffy stayed back, along with Katakuri and Mihawk, as all the way on the other side of the battlefield, Whitebeard and Marco were yet to make a move. "I should have known he would go after him," said Luffy to his companions. "He has a temper all right," replied Mihawk. Whitebeard removed his coat, finally making a move as he seemingly punched the air on both sides. He then gripped the same air that he punched and pulled down, powering through the invisible resistances at his fingertip. The old man was using his power early to intimidate them. Trembling began in the distance and something was coming, and it was coming fast. "Tsunami incoming," yelled Viola as she could see the massive tsunami coming from the east and west of the island. It must have been 400 feet high, an instant death for most if it were to crash on everyone. Though without even needing to give an order, Mihawk jumped in the air from the captain's side, bringing his sword around him. Green air slices, an after image of his powerful strike, escaped the tip of his blade in rapid succession, aimed toward the base of the tsunami. To all who were able to look up and witnessed it, Mihawk literally cut the massive tsunami, and followed with dicing the massive water into huge raindrops. "Gurarara, Hawkeye is here," said Whitebeard. "Deal with him." One of Whitebeard's commanders nodded his head, jumping in the air and charging at Mihawk. Mihawk had just finished cutting the massive tsunami when a blade-wielding swordsman charged at him, bringing his sword to clash with Yuru. "Hawkeye, a pleasure to make your acquaintance." Mihawk did not recognize the swordsman that clashed with him midair. Giant droplets of what was once the tsunami which Whitebeard brought over them, now fell into the battlefield. "The name is Izo." Mihawk suddenly had a smirk in his face. Perfect. Massive raindrops continued to drop into the ground, creating a muddy environment, though the battle continued, no matter what. "Middle ground. Damn it. You're messing with my army, Mihawk," exclaimed Moria from the battlefield below. The earth of Enland was filled with dead bodies, those who were remnants of a possible war from ages ago. Plenty of soldiers for the shadow user. "Eyes up front, princess." A massive man with a giant bazooka fired his shot straight to the face of Moria. Though the cannon fire merely went through the shadow user, as his face reconstructed with his abilities. "Blenheim will end you today, right here, Moria." "Interesting." Moria brought out his scissor blade, his blood boiling from the insult of being sent one of the weaker commanders of Whitebeard pirates. Blenheim dropped the bazooka and brought out his cutlass, clashing with Moria. Gunfire, metal clashing with one another, blood, sweat and tears escaped the personnel on the battlefield as the battle continued to heat up. "Guild, Jozu is plowing straight for the captain," called in Viola to the 7th commander. "Got it," responded the Golden Man. Diamond Jozu continued his momentous dive forward, trying to reach the base camp of Mugiwara. The 3 golden gates slowed the charge of Jozu, effectively stopping him on the 3rd gate. "Enough, Diamond Man. You're overrated, gold is much better." Guild Tessero had a massive smile on his face, as a wave of gold followed the 7th commander. He had swallowed swords and guns alike in his drive to stop the momentum of the Diamond Man. "Screw gold." Jozu delivered a diamond-infused punch which was met with a golden wall. The 2 minerals of the earth clashed in a beautiful battle of diamond and gold. Thatch was currently locked in a duel with Hancock, as the Empress had caused a massive dent in their fighting force. Many men and women alike were turned into stone at the power of Hancock. "Madam, I implore you to stop what you are doing." Thatch met the kick of Hancock with his knife. Luckily, Hancock covered her kick with armament, or her foot would be cut clean off. "No, I'm good." Hancock put more force into her kick which knocked the knife out of Thatch's hands, but he was able to catch it with his offhand and jumped several steps backward. "Stop messing around, Thatch," Commander Namur exclaimed as he used his mastery in Fishman karate to plow through people. But when he aimed to kick another member of the Straw Hats on the back of their head, Arlong intercepted the strike with his saw blade. "You stop messing around," responded Arlong as he sliced his blade diagonally. Namur jumped along the side of the blade to avoid the strike and delivered a powerful flying leg drop. Arlong caught the strike with his forearm and the two jumped away from each other to create some space, right before meeting once more in a thunderous clash. Kaku, the proud user of the giraffe devil fruit, fought against Speed Jiru. The quick spear user was powerful yet Kaku had held his own. They were entangled in the center field. Jabra fought against Bazaar. Their battle was intense and Jabra was going all out with his wolf devil fruit. But these New World pirates were really strong. Gladius battled against Magai. The swordsman electric strike was quick, but the bomb creator had a few tricks up his sleeves. It was a matter of keeping up. Macvis and Monet were both against the DeCalvin brothers. The two were experienced in working together and they fought the experienced twins. Beeg, the human fortress, fought against Zodia, and the Whitebeard ally was met with an underground powerhouse. Urog tossed Kingu to the ground. He took a lot of punches through his body and he returned it with a powerful punch as each strike was returned tenfold against the Whitebeard warrior. Kingu attempted to get up, but ultimately passed out. The Mad Monk has won. Right flank. Watch out. Lucci blazed through the battles between Baccarat and another enemy pirate. He chopped the enemy pirate in the neck for the red-haired beauty and went on with his search for the plump bastard. Thanks, called Baccarat, to which Lucci gave a thumbs up. He was severely curious at his reasoning on why he would attack his own crew member, plus he carried a very strong aura about him. Lucci has never felt pressure like that since captain and it was driving him nuts. Right flank, 20 feet from you due north, called in Viola. Thanks, responded Lucci. And with the help of Viola's guidance, Lucci was able to find the man named Teach. Lucci drove a strong right through the guts of the plump man, and drove him several yards back, creating a dent on the very earth they stood on. Ah, that hurts, that hurts. Teach tumbled around the ground on which his body was hurting all over. Lucci must have mistaken the knife-wielding guy to be the strong one, and this guy Ani kept close to Bluno in law as she fought against Elmi. She was tasked with a very important mission and she can't miss her mark. Corazon the Silent One was pitted against Karma. As the calm and collected former Marine engaged the pirate, he kept Law in close proximity as the newly aged pirate was barely getting used to his new 20-year-old body. Law fought against Ialuan as he also kept close with the others. His mission was more important than the initial clash. Brooke and Bonclay were fighting together, as the duo developed an amazing chemistry in all their shows together. They were an amazing team, but an enemy came near that forced them to fight separately. Ao, an ally captain of Whitebeard, has joined the battle and is currently battling Bonclay. Squar, another allied captain of Whitebeard, brought his massive blade and clashed with Brooke. Their match was also a sight to behold. Bonclay was suddenly knocked out by Ao, but Bluno came in for the save with a doorway. The Whitebeard commander diverted his attention to another enemy. There were more allied captains and commanders in Whitebeard's crew, but there were also hidden powerhouses in Mugiwara's crew. Fisher Tiger is currently fighting Doma, as the expert warrior was immediately met with admiration from Doma. His tale of rescuing slaves reached all corners of the sea, and this was the first time that Doma has met him in person. In the middle of a fight was the craziest part. He was on the right side of the battlefield. Pell is fighting Ramba as the hero of Alabasta was using his years of additional training and advice from Lucci all those time ago. The bird warrior was crazy fast, combining his falcon abilities along with his new understanding of Rokushiki. He fought close to Fisher Tiger. Left flank Sandersonia and Marigold led the Amazons in the left flank as they held their ground, firmly keeping pace with the seasoned Whitebeard pirates. Enel was having the time of his life, currently engaged with two of Whitebeard's commanders. Rokuyo and Atmos were simultaneously engaging him, but neither Enel nor the Whitebeard commanders were getting the upper hand. He was on the left flank of the battlefield along with other members of the armada. "Feel my wrath!" exclaimed Enel in glee as massive bolts of lighting covered the battlefield. Robin, along with the trio of Minx and Pedro, Zeppo, and Peckhams were deep in battle, where Robin was fighting Whitey Bay. The Minx kept close with the poneglyph reader to ensure her safety in this massive war. Kairos, the warrior of Dressrosa, was locked in a duel with Fosa, meeting him on the left side of the battlefield. Jinbei faced Blamenko as the former allies were pinned against one another at the stubbornness of one, Whitebeard. Jem used his additional training to battle Haruta. The human bomb was overwhelming Haruta, but the commander had massive pride and he was not going to lose without a fight. You know what? Haruta was not going to lose to some unknown. Allied backline. Meanwhile, the flag bearer of the Straw Hats was currently posing as he stood behind the waves of the Straw Hat pirates. He was confident because he was safe as he flashed a triumphant pose with the Straw Hat flag in his hands. The 10th commander was accompanied by Moji, Richie, and Kabaji, and they hanged back to, make sure the flag was okay. "Gia ha ha ha. This is so easy," exclaimed the clown. Though a towering shadow passed him and Buggy's eyes widened. "Out of the way, Buggy," Haridan's thundering voice echoed as he was activated for a battle. Ors Jr. made his way forward too, and the giants clashed in the center of the battlefield. Thanks to the coordination of Viola and Brûlé, the Straw Hats were able to clear out of harm's way of the giants' footsteps. Some unfortunate members of the Whitebeard pirates were squashed under his footsteps. The matches were set, and yet 4 people remained unmoving: Whitebeard, Marco, Katakuri, and Luffy. The Straw Hat captain looked at Katakuri. "Go right, keep away from the battlefield as your fight with Marco will get destructive." "Aye, Captain." Katakuri covered his face with his scarf, his eyes never escaping the gaze of the phoenix. Katakuri disappeared in a blur, and shortly after, a blue streak followed closely behind. The Mochi user went right as per Captain's orders, and Marco followed closely behind. Far right, the inevitable clash between the second most powerful of their respective army went out. Hard Mochi met Phoenix Flame as the resulting impact caused the people from the war to experience an aftershock, one of which blew nearly everyone's head back. Dogtooth. Marco had a smile on his face as half of it was covered in Phoenix Flame. His leg was currently in collision with Katakuri's forearm. Phoenix greeted Katakuri as he pushed Marco away from him. There were so many things going on at one time that everyone seemed to forget the impending clash that would need to take place. It would be a battle between the titans of their respective crews. Allied backline Luffy thought it was about time to move, beginning with low strides. A sea of people stood between Luffy and Newgate. But he'll get to him, and his plan will be set in motion. With Yoroge being free of his opponent, he noticed that the captain was making his move. So the smiling monk plowed through where the captain was making his stride and joined him, becoming a spear for the captain. Luffy had reached the middle ground when he was joined by his allies. "Oi, Captain, let me guide you," said Yoroge, not once looking back. Luffy had a grin in his face as the addition of the mad monk was paying dividends. Virgo also joined them, creating a 2-headed front. But about halfway through, Virgo was knocked back by an enemy captain. Then Yoroge was outnumbered and had to stay behind to keep the captain moving. An army of Whitebeard pirates stood between Luffy and his destiny. He readied to activate Gear 3rd, to punch his way through, but he never did so. Why? 2 towering giants brought their weapon through the earth and cleared the final wave of enemies for the captain to have a straight shot at Whitebeard. Enemy backline Luffy leapt from where he stood, his fist outstretched, with the old man in front of him. Luffy finally delivered the right hook of the century, colliding with Whitebeard's own punch. An emperor's duel occurred between them where hundreds of people who were close to the clash effectively passed out. Crackles of hockey escaped their collided fist, and Luffy knew, from the very beginning, that they would have to be alone, to be able to fight all out. Someone had snuck something under Whitebeard while focused on the clash with Mugiwara. By the time he realized what it was too late. Whitebeard had fallen through a door, falling down through the portal. "What trickery is this, Mugiwara?" Whitebeard exclaimed as he continued to fall through the door. Within a few seconds of falling down, Whitebeard saw a blur of a man who touched his back. At contact, Whitebeard twisted so quickly that it shocked the man who touched him. "Where the hell is Mugi?" Though he was never able to finish his sentence as Whitebeard fell straight through the other side of the door, landing on both feet. No longer did he have a visual of whoever touched him. Enland, unknown island. We are still at Enland, just away from the battlefield. Luffy had made his entrance through a floating door. He closed it behind him and the door disappeared in thin air. "What's your play, Mugiwara?" Whitebeard's voice was low and he seemed to be holding himself back from lashing. "This is for your benefit, as I asked for your best." "Well, this is it, give me your best." Luffy outstretched his arms to point at their surroundings. A mile in all directions of nothing but empty land. "So have it, old man." "Gurarararara. Is that so?" Suddenly, Whitebeard's fist was covered in quake bubbles. He then punched the air, causing a tremor to begin from underneath Luffy. "Come on, you got better stuff than that. Listen. 2 miles out in Alder Bounce Room. For you see, I've taken inspiration from Don Quixote and created a room where your particular power will remain inside my rubber cage. So like I said, go crazy Shirahige." It was now time to get serious, as Whitebeard's frown turned into a grin. "You know Mugiwara." He then removed his coat, placing his Basento on the ground. If it wasn't for being a damned cocky brat, he then licked up his Basento. "I would have loved to have a cup of sake with you." And the old man disappeared in a blur, his Basento appearing mere inches from Luffy's face before he noticed it. "Fuck," exclaimed Luffy as he was lucky to bring up his arm out of instinct. But the old man was not done yet as he brought his left heel up, attempting to kick Luffy right in his kidney. And this time, luck didn't bring a factor when Luffy brought his knee up to block the strike. Luffy then brought his free leg and kicked Shirahige right through his guts. This was enough to separate them for the time being, but the old man was very stubborn, charging forward once more. "Alright," Luffy exclaimed. For once in his 2 years since returning to the past, he was finally able to go all out. He activated Gear Second and also used Natural Soru in conjunction with his ability to match the speed of the Yonko. He learned his Gear Second by getting a variant of Soru, but adding the natural style of Rokushiki. With the help of Lucci, Soru helped him get even faster. This was a testament of the old man's insane God-given gifts, as Luffy had to use 2 speed base abilities to even keep up with him. Maybe he bit off more than he could chew. But he couldn't think about it as Luffy avoided an incoming strike with the enemy's Basento and delivered a right hook, straight to the thick skull of the Yonko. The atmosphere became thicker as the exchange between the 2 candidates of the Pirate King erupted. And their match would echo through the course of history, for eternity. But to Luffy's insane good luck, the old man coughed for a moment, stopping his attack mid-stride. It was enough opening for the Straw Hat Captain to deliver a devastating gut punch, one in which caused blood to escape the mouth of Edward Newgate. "Gurarara brat," said Whitebeard as he wiped the blood from his mouth. "Old man." Luffy responded confidently despite pain all over his body. His body was covered in steam and his hockey-infused body blew up into a muscle balloon. He began to bounce on the ground and Luffy had activated his Gear Fourth, Boundman. The duo waiting for the other to make a move, right flank. "Anyone free? Pell needs help," called Viola over the line. Corazon took a moment to look around and found that Commander Lucci was occupied, so he had to get his attention. "Oi, Commander Lucci." This came from Corazon as he kept the sound only through each other's ears. Corazon manipulated sound and he can direct it to go to certain people if he so chooses. Lucci looked away from Teach for a moment as the plump man continued to tumble on the ground in pain. Pell needs help. Lucci realized that the Alabastan warrior was bleeding from an open wound on his right forearm. The pirate captain, Ramba, penetrated the skin of the falcon. The zone attempted to deep dive the New World captain, but was met with the end of the enemy's blade. Now he was at the mercy of the enemy. "What is your name, warrior?" asked Captain Ramba. "Pell, of Alabasta." Pell gasped for air as blood continued to flow from his wounds. He struggled to get up as his impending fate was a death on the battlefield. Not a bad way to go out. It was an honor, Pell of Alabasta. Just as Ramba brought his blade down, attempting to smite Pell, Lucci had covered the distance and tackled Ramba into the ground. Before Ramba could retaliate, Lucci brought together his leopard paws, mere inches from the chest of Ramba. "Rokuogan." He repeated this 3 times, ensuring that the enemy captain would not be able to move from the injury he has sustained. Allied backline, medic. The Straw Hats have designated 3 runners for medical retrieval. Tanaka, who was quick to travel through the battlefield as he was able to phase through inanimate objects. In order to assist Tanaka's travels, Pika had brought up stones from the earth and scattered them all over the battlefield. But Tanaka had a trick up his sleeves. Khalifa, whose bubble ability was perfect for evading enemies as nobody could hold her long enough to stop her movement. Absalom, who could phase through enemies' gaze without attracting attention. Their doctors included Dr. Hogback, Dr. Hiralik, Dr. Kureha, and Dr. Crocus, along with countless healers who volunteered. Law was busy fighting in the war, but his healing skills would have been useful. Khalifa arrived at the aid of Pell, who brought him close. She then created bubbles underneath her and she slipped through the enemies and back into the home base. Pell was immediately transported through a series of medical beds. Hundreds of people were already being treated, as many people were suffering from deadly injuries. Pell was assisted to a bed and Khalifa left him going out for more people in need. Pell looked into the roof of the makeshift tent and closed his eyes. His final vision before passing out was Dr. Hiralik. This was really a war. Right flank back in the right flank. Lucci had watched Pell gets carted off. He then jumped into the sky, activating his Geppo to seemingly float in the air. He launched Tobushigen bullets all over the battlefield, rapidly launching an attack to all enemy forces. He actively incapacitated maybe 100 of Whitebeard's men. When he finally fell into the ground, remembering his actual opponent, he realized that he made a huge mistake. Forgetting about Teach for only a few moments was not good as he felt the same maniacal energy from a monster. He didn't feel this presence before. Why was this showing up now? Zihahaha. Teach laughed as he somehow made it behind Lucci. Strong, but I got something to do. So disappear. Teach fired off 3 shots of his pistol and Lucci thought he was just going to dodge them like all those months ago. Big mistake as all of the bullets entered each of his legs, 2 on his right. Lucci was too shocked to anticipate Teach following him with his gun. He accurately predicted where he would be and accurately hitting him with his bullets. He fell backward as the impact of the gunfire caused him to tumble back. But Teach was not done as he got on top of him. 3 bullets left in the chamber of his revolver. In quick succession, Teach managed to fire all 3 of his remaining bullets, 1 in Lucci's torso, upper right arm, and left arm. Teach then watched as Lucci was bleeding out, with a sadistic smile on his face. Everyone dies eventually, let's see if this is your time. Oh, by the way, I know who you're after. Yeah, the one that murdered your family in cold blood. Yeah, she is really dangerous but damn fine if I do say so myself. He mocked him and yet Lucci could not do anything. For all the energy he had left, he used to not choke in his own blood. With that, the seemingly stupid, and the weak plump man ended up absolutely defeating Lucci. Before Teach could truly leave, Commander Moria stood in front of him, stopping Teach in his strides. For Moria has left the middle ground and traveled to the right flank. In his wake was the passed out Blenheim, with his cutlass broken in pieces. Get out of my way, Moria, warned Teach, although Moria responded by swallowing Teach in a shadow demon, although the shadow demon exploded with the plump man looking angry. Disappear, Moria. Teach had reloaded his revolver within an instant, and successfully fired 5 shots, each going through the skin of Moria. How? I am Shadow. Moria fell on one knee and then finally flat on his face. Teach had successfully defeated 2 of the Straw Hat commanders, 3rd Commander Lucci and 9th Commander Moria. Bluno, who had just returned from assisting the captain, realized that Lucci was down. Commanders. Bluno immediately rusheathed Bonclay, rushing to Moria. I'm going to the medical bay, exclaimed Bluno as he opened a doorway from under Commander Lucci and Moria. He then opened the door and let the commander disappear on the other side. Moria was out indefinitely as the shadow user could not move, not even one bit. A puddle of blood was left behind by the 3rd commander of the Straw Hats. Sorry, Captain, thought Lucci as his mind faded into darkness, his mind filled with regret as he wasn't able to fulfill his promise. He could not kill Teach. With the loss of Commander Lucci and Commander Moria shortly after, morale was low in the right flank. Viola actively searched for Teach to give his location to another commander, preferably a powerhouse like Enel. But the strange thing was, nobody has found Teach. We lost Lucci, exclaimed Fisher Tiger, who pushed Doma back, delivering a twisting gut kick right through the stomach of the Whitebeard allied commander. Doma was knocked back, to which Fisher Tiger finished his combination with a 100 tile punch straight through his guts. Doma effectively fell over, eliminating another member of the Whitebeard pirates. Ah! Exclaimed Bonnie as she could not get in contact with Elmi. She fell flat on her back with intense pain in her midsection. Fisher Tiger realized that her ally was down, so he charged straight after Elmi. Her gun never reached above her waist as Fisher Tiger disarmed her, that delivered a painful kick right through the chin of Elmi, knocking her out. You alright? Asked Fisher Tiger as he surveyed the surrounding, although extending his hands at Bonnie. Yeah, I'm good, though she grasped her side as Fisher Tiger helped her up. She nearly fell down but was caught by Fisher Tiger with one arm. No, not good. With the missing commanders on their sector, Fisher Tiger took it upon himself to take over command of the right flank. He was definitely up to the task. Medic. In a few minutes, Tanaka arrived, just as Fisher Tiger tossed two enemies away from attempting to attack Bonnie. Got it, exclaimed Tanaka as he took Bonnie over his shoulder. He then dashed through the battlefield, with Bonnie around his arms. Tanaka could only phase through inanimate objects, so he had a genius idea of phasing through swords, guns, baseball bats, whatever. It helped that Pika raised stones for him to phase through, but he really needed to get creative in this vast battlefield. As long as it's not a living being, he was golden. Allied backline in a matter of an instant, Tanaka had traveled through the battlefield and had delivered Bonnie to the home base. What happened? Dr. Hiralik met Tanaka at the door, placing Bonnie immediately to a patient's bed. Trauma on her abdomen was all Tanaka could say before returning out on the field. He had to get more injured, as quickly as he possibly can. This goes the same for Absalom, who returned with an Amazon woman with a massive gun wound on her chest. And Khalifa was not slacking off either, as she brought back an underground member who broke bones all over his body. The medical bay was in overtime. The communication bay was in overtime, as they kept updating their big board on the forces in battle, any backdoor movement, and shifts in formation. Viola, in particular, was working overtime, and so was Brûlé, as she kept her mirror communications online at all times. There was no time to rest at a time like this. Buggy, on the other hand, continued to wave their flag proudly, continuing on his claim that this war was too damn easy. Though this was a specific fronting strategy, as he was scared shitless. He had to look strong for the people. He had to hold the flag up. No matter what happens, it has to stay up. Right flank. Over in the right flank, things were getting intense. Law remained in his intense battle with Ialuan. Not one was getting the upper hand on the other. He noticed that Bonnie was gone. How could they do their mission now? Bonclay continued to fight with Ao, who was shocked to see him return. The Whitebeard allied commander could have sworn he took care of this guy earlier. Brook created space between himself and Squar, freezing the enemy commander for a few moments. Fisher Tiger-san. Brook joined the Fishman warrior. What happened to Lucci-san? He is in the med bay as far as I know. The warrior pushed back two incoming swordsmen with a rising leg sweep. We need the sea. Just wait a moment, they should be here soon. Brook responded before returning to his battle with Squar. The enemy captain unfroze himself with sheer will and brought his giant sword down on the fifth commander. Brook absorbed the strike with his cane sword and knocked the blade out of Squirt's hands. What? Asked Squar in confusion as his blade flew in the air. Then Brook proceeded to slice Squar crossways, each cut creating a slice through the chest of the enemy captain. His soul briefly escaped him, but Brook decided to return it to his body. No need to kill. Squar fell back, passing out from the strike. Men, resume battle position, Brook exclaimed as the Straw Hats were still at a loss on the right flank. Two commanders down, and it was getting grim by the minute. Suddenly, Brook felt something incoming. For way down underground, two massive titanic beasts in Laboon and Sarume had been tirelessly digging through the belly of the island. Then, as the fishman asked for the ocean, they shall receive. Laboon and Sarume emerged gloriously from under the land, bringing with them a massive source of ocean water through the hole which they dug. Sarume entered the right flank. All right, cheered Jinbei. A new wave of energy coursed through the Straw Hat pirates. He delivered a devastating fishman karate technique that ultimately caused Blamenko to double over, his giant mallet falling on his sides as the content of his pocket leaked out. Left flank Laboon entered the left flank, providing the much-needed ocean water for the fishmen of the Straw Hat pirates. Yeah! Exclaimed Aladdin along with the countless fishmen in the left flank. The renewed energy from the fresh water caused fighters such as Hatchin and Icarus much to course with new energy. The Amazons took the new energy from the fishmans and pressed forward as well. Robin was currently engaged in a heated battle with Whitey Bay. Neither woman was letting the other get even a slight advantage. Whitey Bay noted that Robin was strong, and for a New World captain to admit that, it was a testament of Robin's intense training with the Straw Hats. Peckham's, Zeppo, and Pedro kept close, protecting Robin from other pirates from trying to jump her when she was not paying attention. "Protect her at all costs," exclaimed Peckham's, knocking back an enemy pirate. Zeppo sliced an enemy with his sword while Pedro ensured that the one who reads the poneglyphs is okay. Whitey Bay got the upper hand shortly and she brought her cutlass near the throat of the queen. Pedro jumped in to interfere, but there was no need. Robin actually had Whitey Bay right where she wanted her. Her limbs extended out of the body of the enemy pirate captain and Robin literally choked her until she passed out. The queen got up as if nothing happened and continued on the battle. Kairos of Dressrosa had a wife and child to return to. There was no way he was losing his life here. He fought valiantly against Fosa, effectively delivering a horizontal slash through the enemy commander. Kairos stood tall at the end, but he was exhausted beyond belief. The New World commander was no joke, even he could attest to that. Lucky for him, Frankie came in with a hyperbeam of sorts and blew Fosa far, far away. "Thanks," said Kairos as he blocked an incoming strike. "You're welcome." Frankie gave a thumbs up to Kairos and continued on unleashing his technological inventions. "Somebody assist Gem." Enel was calling the shots for the left flank. And upon using his mantra, he was able to feel that Gem was driven to a corner by Haruta. He would go over there, but he had his hands full with Atmos and Rokuyo. Gem was at a corner, nearly at the tip of Haruta's blade when somebody came in for the save. "Got it!" exclaimed Perona, who had been phasing her negative ghost through hordes of people to lower their morale. But the newly aged 20-year-old was finally activated for battle. Gem was immediately retrieved by Absalom and helped to the medical bay. She floated to Haruta, who immediately met her in the air. Haruta was quick, but Perona was able to bring 2 negative ghosts through the commander. "I am but a cockroach." Haruta fell on all 4 and dreaded his life. Though the effect was only momentary as Haruta used his superior speed to knock Perona out, effectively beating her as well. It was a few years too early for Perona to even put a dent on a Yonko commander. The commanders of Whitebeard's division were no joke, and this was a testament, as everyone should already know. Just as Haruta was about to move on to the next opponent, crackles of thunder covered his surroundings. For in the distance, Haruta could see that Atmos and Rokuyo were passed out cold, their bodies burned by lightning. Haruta felt his body tense as he turned around, seeing a smiling Enel right behind him. He tried to bring his sword up, but a lightning bolt shot right through him, knocking him out. Enel then leveled the battlefield, slowing the roll the Whitebeard forces were garnering. He sent out a rain of thunderbolts, knocking several members of the Whitebeard pirates unconscious. The battle between Ors Jr. and Haruden began in the center field but has now migrated to the left flank. Each punch by either giant caused the earth to tremble as neither one of the giants gave way to the other. Though Haruden had a hidden card in his back pocket, for the past 6 months, Lucci had been tirelessly training him in the art of Rokushiki. Geppo, imagine a giant that was kicking the air so that he could stay afloat. People couldn't help but stop what they were doing to look at the giant that blocked the sunlight. Ors Jr. looked up curiously with Haruden descending rapidly, delivering an elbow drop straight to the head of the giant. The impact brought Ors Jr. onto the ground. People scattered for the falling giant in the fear of getting crushed. A massive dust storm brewed up and Haruden was the victor. "Yeah!" exclaimed the 8th commander, although his celebration was cut short as his knee buckled inwards. A gleam of shiny substance collided with one knee, then the other as the giant fell face first on the ground, unable to get up. Haruden's celebration was interrupted by none other than Diamond Jozu, who sought revenge for his fallen friend, Ors Jr. Enel noticed the arrival of the Diamond Man and noted that if he was here, then that means Guild lost. The Thunder user charged at Jozu, supercharging his lightning to be at its highest strength, and yet, as it collided with Diamond, the powerhouse of the Whitebeard pirates merely ignored his strike. Jozu realized that it was he who was causing the problem and picked up steam, eventually catching Enel with a shoulder tackle, right in his chest. No amount of lightning, thunder, or electricity could slow his roll. For a big guy, he sure was fast, and a natural absorbent of his power. Enel did try his best, but his best was not enough. He failed in defeating the 3rd commander of the Whitebeard pirates. He managed to beat a couple of them, and yet he met a literal wall in Jozu. His electricity could barely affect the diamond as it does not conduct electricity. So it was not a good match for him. Hockey didn't help much either, as in hand-to-hand combat, the 3rd Division commander had him beat. So Edel was now on his back, shocked to have lost to a 3rd Division commander. He thought he would steamy commanders and eventually deal with the Quake Man all by himself, and yet, here he was, overestimating himself once more. He needs lightning strong enough for natural advantages, and disadvantages won't be a factor. Black lightning, yeah. More. He needs more power. Middle Ground Guild had been rushed to the Medic's Bay. He was utterly defeated by the 3rd commander of the Whitebeard Pirates. He sustained many internal injuries as the blunt force of the Diamond Man was too much for the Gold Emperor. In terms of ground mineral hierarchy, nothing tops Diamond. "We lost Guild," exclaimed Arlong, whose sword was knocked out of his hands and was now fighting Namur in hand-to-hand combat. "I noticed," responded Hancock, who fought nearby. She was engaged in a tightly contested match with Thatch. In the middle ground, 2 expert swordsmen fought with such grace that people couldn't help but watch them. "What do you know about Shimotsuki, warrior?" Mihawk heard the loss of Guild, but he could not avert his attention from his opponent. Commander Izo looked at Mihawk with confusion. He then clashed with the swordsman in multiple angles. Not one time could he gain an advantage. "Enough! Who's asking?" He brought his sword from the ground, cutting the very earth they stood on, and brought it through the center of Mihawk. But the swordsman's countered with a diagonal cut, stopping Izo from his momentum. He then forced him back and received a gash right on his chest. Izo felt the pain but did not let that bother him. "I am." Mihawk did not allow Izo to retaliate as he slammed his sword away from the swordsman. He then unleashed a flurry of slashes, enough so that Izo could not keep up, receiving multiple, non-fatal cuts from all over his body. "Hey, maybe I'll tell you one day." From the exhaustion of trying to keep up with Dracul Mihawk, Izo fell face first on the dirt ground, losing to the world's greatest swordsman. "Damn," thought Mihawk as he didn't learn anything new. So much for getting answers from someone he thought would know. Back to Hancock against Thatch. "Don't worry, my lady, we've had our losses too." Thatch joked with Hancock as he responded to Arlong's outburst of losing one of theirs. "We can't lose this war. I hope you don't take this personally." Hancock delivered a roundhouse kick right to the face of Thatch, but the 4th commander caught it with his forearm. "I don't really," he said with a smirk, and pushed Hancock back. Thatch then closed the gap and brought his knife to the face of Hancock, who could barely avoid the strike by a hair. Her opponent was really strong, so she would need to use it then. Hancock stepped back, channeling her devil fruit and focusing on it. It was time to show her awakening. Though before she could reveal her new power, blood splattered all over her face, as Thatch found himself gasping for air. For the 4th commander of the Whitebeard Pirates, found himself on the receiving end of a sharpened dagger, straight through his heart. Hancock's eyes widened as a gruff-looking man stabbed the commander in the back. He had an enraged look in his face. "Zee-ha-ha-ha," laughed the assailant, one hand with the murder weapon, another with a handful of grapes. Hancock watched as the eyes of Thatch went from anger to pain, and then finally to emptiness. Life escaped the 4th commander without a chance to get an answer. Why? So the queen asked for him. "What are you doing?" All of a sudden, the grapes which were on the hands of the assailant changed shape, turning into what Hancock could only assume as devil fruit. "Zee-ha-ha-ha. At last. I finally got the opportunity to take you out, Thatch." The gruff-looking man consumed the grape devil fruit, taking only one bite out of it. He then began to tremble as the power which was within the fruit coursed through his entire body. "Why would you kill your own?" asked Hancock, cautious as Teach let the darkness course through his entire body. For months, Teach had been looking for a chance to kill Thatch as the 4th commander ate the yummy yummy no mi. As fate would have it, Thatch found and actually consumed the devil fruit. And Teach waited for a long time for its arrival. Now it was his destiny to become the darkness to swallow the world. Nobody, not even a time traveler, could mess with Teach's destiny. "He ate the fruit which belongs to me." With that simple statement, a portal of darkness emerged from behind Teach. He then stepped back, allowing the darkness to swallow him. Though he did not leave without leaving his mark as he let the darkness explode and kill those in close proximity to the portal. Hancock was lucky to activate her armament on time, or else she would be dead. She would have pursued the shadow user, but he had been long gone. "Commander Thatch!" exclaimed one of the Whitebeard pirates. "He's dead!" exclaimed another. And just like wildfire, news of the death of Thatch spread throughout the battlefield. It wasn't, although the Whitebeard pirates did not hear anything she was saying. She had blood on her hands, and she was the one fighting Thatch. No one would believe that Teach killed him, no one. Hancock, they will not listen to reason. The hawk landed behind her, standing back to back with the queen. He had just finished his battle with Izo and found the queen in some trouble. "I didn't do it," she reiterated her previous statement. "I know." Mihawk gripped his blade tightly. Stupid men. Her anger caused those who were near to pass out. Conqueror's haki was exhibited by the queen. Then, as to finally accept that they were not going to listen, Hancock finally activated her awakening. A pink humanoid figure escaped her body, its form morphed quickly, as its long, slender lower body turned into a snake's tail. Its upper body was that of a human, and it held a circular orb on one hand, and a spear on the other. Its head was covered in 1,000 snakes. The pink humanoid blob had become Medusa, the cursed. Her fruit is the Mero Mero no Mi. Though deep within her fruit, hid the mythical zone known as Medusa, a woman who turned anything that looked upon her horrid face into stone. Hancock commanded the mythical beast to wreak havoc as it used its tail to cause massive damage in the enemy forces. The orb in its hands emitted energy beams, and the spear was used for close combat. Any and all who stared into the face of Medusa turned immediately into stone, even if they did not lust for it. "Go now, Mihawk, chase after Jozu. Leave the middle to me," was Hancock's command, to which Mihawk complied, dashing to the right flank and immediately recognizing Jozu, beating Enel. Hancock cleaned house in the middle ground, riding on top of Medusa and causing massive dent in the enemy forces. Earlier her advances were halted by Thatch, but now it seemed like nobody would be able to hold her back, and there were those who tried to stop her, but they all failed. "Allied backline. No, Komian," exclaimed Dice as he removed Commander Enel's name from their warboard. The battlefield was finally taking shape as commanders and prominent fighters from both sides fell off. On the side of the Straw Hats, 3rd Commander Lucci, 8th Commander Haruden, 9th Commander Moria and 11th Commander Enel were incapacitated. For the Allies, Pell and Marigold were defeated. For members, Bonnie, Gem, and Perona amongst hundreds of Allied fighters and members. Then on Whitebeard's side, Commander Thatch was killed. Commander Blenheim, Commander Haruta, Commander Atmos, Commander Izo and Commander Rokuyo have been beaten. In the Allies department, Ors Jr., Squar, Elmi, Doma, Ramba and many more. Though the most important of the battles were on the enemy backline, left flank, far left, and on an unknown sector of Enland. On the enemy backline, Crocodile and Vista were not letting the other get the upper hand, as sand met flower petals. On the left flank, a match was brewing as an unstoppable force was going to meet an immovable object. Mihawk was the force, whereas Jozu was the object. On the far LTT field, pillars of blue phoenix flames exploded in several directions as it met a hard, thick, mochi wall. Marco and Katakuri were engaged in a close battle. Then of course, there was the match of the titans. Mugiwara and Shirahige, inside a 2-mile-wide rubber room, duking it out in a match of the century. Unknown Island, the battles were continuing, neither side particularly getting any advantage. All the battlefield remained at a stalemate. Though something was brewing on the detached island of Enland, where Luffy fought Newgate. Luffy had now transformed into Gear 4th, Bound Man. He tried to power through Whitebeard's guard, but the Yonko really took Luffy up for his offer. He was actually going all out, without the risk of causing any world-ending events. As Luffy got close, Whitebeard delivered a powerful quake punch in the air that sent Luffy back by several yards. "Gurarara brat, you sure you want me at my best?" Whitebeard brought his finger in the air once more. Gripping tightly as he pulled down once more, Luffy felt his surroundings alter, as fissures formed from below him. He jumped out of the way, as rock formations altered all around him. That day, Luffy learned that Whitebeard without a limiter is literally a monster. But he had a few tricks up his sleeves, as he would not fight Whitebeard without having a plan to beat him. But first he had to get that Basento taken care of. So Luffy activated Gear 2nd, and put the natural form of Soru on top of it. He disappeared in the naked eye, but Whitebeard kept up with him. He used some of the raised ground formations in order to launch himself forward. Whitebeard brought his Basento down at Luffy, but the rubber man caught the Basento, wrapped it with his rubber arm, pried it from Whitebeard, and tossed it far from the Yonko. As his focus was disarming Whitebeard, Luffy forgot that the old man still had his other limbs available. He brought both hands down at Luffy and hammered him into the ground. Then Luffy hit the ground so hard that he was lifted from the ground, and Whitebeard kicked Luffy before he could recover. The more devastating part was each strike by the Quake Man was infused with his ability, so the inside of Luffy's body would have been turned into a blender if it wasn't for activating armament on time. Luffy caught himself with both hands, slowing his tumble. He finally halted, but Whitebeard wasn't done with him. The Emperor was already in his face, his right fist pulled back with a familiar bubble of his Quake ability around it. He then brought his fist forward, aimed into the face of Luffy. Gear 4th. Snake Man. Luffy had transformed into one of his most powerful forms while tumbling from the strike by Whitebeard. As the Yonko brought his fist down towards Luffy, a perfectly timed python caught Whitebeard behind his head. The impact was enough to distract him as another python connected on his right cheek. Then another to the left cheek. Until quite literally, Whitebeard was bombarded with punches from different directions. Enough! Whitebeard released his Conqueror's Haki, knocking Luffy slightly back. He recovered and brought his fist back and launched another barrage of pythons. This time, Whitebeard was ready, using Observation Haki to block each strike. There were only 2 fists from the Straw Hat Man, and he loved to strike in Whitebeard's blind spot. Not too shabby, old man. Luffy noticed someone appear from a distance, then disappeared quickly. That person grabbed something and left, just as Luffy had planned. Left flank. The very earth trembled as the Dressrosa commander pulled all the stone from the land and pulled it in himself. He then merged with the stone and commanded it to squash Jozu. Though the Diamond Man simply smashed through the monster that is Pika and went straight out of his stone beast, effectively locating and taking care of him. The third commander of the Whitebeard Pirates was on a roll. He went through Commander Guild, Commander Enel, and now Dressrosa Commander Pika. But the immovable force finally met his match, as a diagonal green air slice made its way towards him. He blocked it with his diamond-covered body, which caused the dust to cover the ground. Once it cleared though, in the path of Jozu was Mihawk. His blade extended and pointed at the Diamond Man. "Your victories end right here, Jozu," declared Mihawk. "Will you enforce it, Hawkeye?" challenged Jozu as the 2 commanders looked at each other before finally engaging. Mihawk brought Yuru down into the shoulder of Jozu, only to meet a diamond-covered shoulders. To make it sturdier, Jozu covered his diamond in armament just to make sure that Yuru doesn't cut through him. Mihawk was known as a swordsman who could cut anything, and Jozu wasn't going to take any risk. Yuru diverted its strike towards Jozu's neck, but the two was covered in black diamond, a result of the armament. He then used his free hand, opposite of where Yuru struck him, and pushed the blade back. He then brought his shoulder down and charged at Mihawk, but the swordsman used his immense speed to jump up in the sky. Jozu looked up, to find the tip of Yuru crashing towards his back. So he used his back foot to launch himself forward, narrowly avoiding the crashing blade. In the place where Jozu once stood, Mihawk had brought down Yuru, with a large crater on the ground. That would have been him if he did not get out of the way. So who would win? The immovable object, or the unstoppable force? Enemy backline Crocodile was holding the 2 blades of Vista with his golden hook. He used his free hand to bring up a sand spike, attempting to stab the enemy right through his heart. Vista knocked the golden hook back and cut the sand with both blades. A flurry of flower petals following each strike. Vista noticed that a group of Straw Hats has gotten in their backline, more specifically, 2 giants, a monk, and an armament user with thick shades. So Vista took his blade and knocked down the golden hook, and unleashed a rose rondo, which wrapped Crocodile in a tornado of flower petals. This should be enough to hold the sand user for even just a moment. Vista rushed Virgo first, knocking him out before the Straw Hat member could react. Yorogue tried to slam Vista with a giant rock, but Vista expertly cut through the rock and knocked him out. Vista then made a play for the giants but was stopped by Crocodile, he was able to get out of the rose trap. "You bastard," Crocodile said with a serious look on his face. A sand sable covered his hands. "Ah, you have gotten out of my trap," said Vista with a smile. He managed to clear 2 enemies who got into their backline. That should be okay for now. The problem now was the giants. Crocodile unleashed his own tornado of sand, but Vista twisted in the opposite direction, eliminating the sandstorm. But Crocodile blitzed him, bringing his golden hook down towards Vista. Once again they clashed with each other, the sound of the golden hook and blade echoed in the air. He touched the ground, to which he turned the ground into quicksand right under the feet of Vista. The 4th commander began to sink, but he jumped up in the air, powering through sinking in the quicksand. Far right Katakuri brought up a massive mochi pillar, attempting to clip the phoenix mid-air. But Marco was an expert flyer, and he dodged each spiked pillar before doing a 180 and deep diving towards Katakuri, Phoenix Flame boosting him forward. The mochi user manipulated his mochi to turn into a semi-liquid state, as the massive mochi pillar seemingly melted and came crashing down over the head of Marco. The Phoenix noticed that he was surrounded by mochi and exerted a large amount of Phoenix Flame to burn his surrounding. At the end of the exchange, they were back to square one, with Marco standing several yards from Katakuri, neither man gaining any footing against the other. "Why didn't you just back away when I warned you?" Marco said as once again he took flight, boosting forward once more to deliver a kick into the face of Katakuri. The mochi forward manipulated his body so that the kick was swallowed into his body as a mochi form, and brought Marco close. "Captain will be king," said the 1st commander of the Straw Hats simply, which initially shocked Marco but caused the 1st commander to chuckle. "That's funny because my pops is going to be king," replied Marco with a confident smile. He released blue and yellow flame from the tip of his feet to escape from the mochi trap. He used it to create a separation once more. Middle ground, enough. From atop of the enemy line, Shirahige slammed his Basento on the ground. This war is now over. The Whitebeard pirates will stand down, though upon closer look, his arms were trembling slightly while holding the Basento. Confusion ran all throughout the battlefield, as commanders, allies, and fighters looked at each other in confusion. Marco, who was still locked in an even battle with Katakuri, decided to see what this was all about. "Maybe we'll meet again, Dogtooth." "Another time then, Phoenix," replied Katakuri as he watched Marco fly towards his captain. Katakuri crossed his arms and listened in on Viola's report. "Final phase, everyone, stand down," was all Viola said, to which everyone immediately understood. The Whitebeard pirates stopped, and the Straw Hats stopped. The war has come to a halt. "Pops, what is happening?" Marco landed beside Whitebeard. Earlier that same day, Bluno opened the door underneath Whitebeard to transport him to the island which the captain chose. Bonclay was the one to tap Whitebeard in the back. Luckily Bluno phased the Yonko through before Bonclay could have died. Then, later on, Bluno picked up the Basento which the captain knocked out of Whitebeard's hands. He then delivered the Basento to Bonclay to complete the look, as the main user turned his form into Whitebeard, and called off the war. "Listen carefully, I just want the war to stop." Underneath his disguise, he was scared shitless as he was making things up as he went. "But why?" pried Marco, still confused at the whole thing. Bonclay, in the guise of Whitebeard, began to sweat feverishly as he tried to come up with an excuse. "Say you lost one of the commanders." "Oh, Thatch was killed." "That's right, good call, Viola." "We lost Thatch," he said with a smile of sorts, but quickly recovered with a serious face. "Fuck. But in a war, Pops, unfortunately, there are losses," began Marco, but Viola fed some good information to Bonclay to finally cease the 1st commander's prying. "Hancock says that a Teach killed him, say that." "Thank you, higher power for the woman named Viola," thought Bonclay as he finally had a good answer. "Marco. Thatch was killed by Teach." This put the 1st commander in a massive state of shock. No, in the mind of Marco, all he could think about was how red-haired and even Mugiwara warned them about Teach. They should have listened, they should have. "This war is now over," declared Bonclay, posed as Whitebeard. "Now Marco, I will retire on my ship. Do not bother me no matter what." Excellent, the perfect hiatus. This should give the captain enough time to settle the battle with the real Newgate. With one powerful leap, He leapt into the distance, pretending to disappear into the horizon. He nearly pulled a hamstring trying to mimic the Yonko's massive leap. Ouch ouch. And once Bonclay was in the clear, he entered a door that led him back with the main force. Marco looked at where Whitebeard once stood, in massive confusion. "Retreat," ordered Marco, to which the Whitebeard pirates began to filter out. It was Captain's orders. "Stand down." The Straw Hats respected their retreat, as Katakuri gave the orders to stand down. The fight between Jozu and Mihawk was a tie. As Mihawk stopped his blade from meeting with the Diamond Man, his blade blazed a shiny black color as he was aiming to cut the arm off of the Diamond Man. Their match was postponed. Crocodile against Vista was a tie. Neither Sand nor the swordsman had an advantage over the other. Crocodile seethed as, throughout the battle, Vista kept him occupied. He did not get to his goal to take care of the old bastard. And of course, Marco against Katakuri ended as a tie. The match of the century was put on a hold as neither man would let the other gain any form of advantage. This was the burden of first commanders. The war was over, but really the war was only reaching its conclusion in the Unknown Island, where Luffy and Newgate resided. Enland Unknown Island rubber met Quake as neither man was letting the other gain an advantage. Luffy's barrage of Gum Gum pistol was met with the quickness of Whitebeard's fist. Barrage of fist met each other, each strike causing energy to release, destroying the land they stood on. The very earth lifted at each impact and the two separated once again. Whitebeard infused his fist with a quake and hit Luffy in his abdomen. Though the rubber man absorbed the strike, swallowing the fist of the old man in his rubber abdomen, and kicked him straight to the face. Whitebeard didn't let his gaze leave the Straw Hat Captain as he took the strike like a man. He then used his other hand to palm Luffy's face. He attempted to squeeze, but Luffy used both legs to create separation. Luffy covered himself in steam, now activating Gear 4 once more. With no limit, he could switch between Python and Bound Man without an issue. The old man was obviously held back by his declining, and Luffy didn't like the advantage. He wanted the old man at his best. Luffy released a Kong Gatling gun. The weight of each strike was heavier than before. Whitebeard brought up his arm, absorbing the strike with his quake-infused forearm. As Luffy's fist connected with Whitebeard, his fist shook violently at the impact as the Quake Man transferred his ability through his defensive strategy. Luffy shook his arms as he was forced to retreat, his vision becoming shaky. But Whitebeard didn't let up, as he has done all throughout their fight. Without his Basento, who had disappeared from where it landed earlier, he used his legs to kick Luffy straight to the face. Luffy closed his eyes and absorbed the strike as he had no time to dodge it. He was sent several yards back, finally stopping as his momentum slowed. "Old man, I'm going to win this." Luffy readied his fist, preparing for his ultimate desperation technique. "In your dreams, brat." Whitebeard was going to match Luffy as he too wanted this match to end. Luffy covered the distance, bringing his right fist forward. Whitebeard leapt forward as well, infused with massive earth-shattering quake punch. Luffy met him with his own rubber punch as his thought process was to absorb the initial quake and then go through the old man's fist. It was so crazy that it might actually work. Hockey energy escaped their final clash. Not one man moved from their punch as their entire environment shattered. The ground they stood on collapsed. "Ah!" screamed Luffy, trying to generate more power in his punch. "Grr!" Whitebeard could not push forward while using his most powerful technique. And then an explosion. Then silence. Who would have thought? Rubber could stand toe-to-toe with Quake, Allied backline. A person had arrived in the Allied backline, and he was intercepted by the 10th commander. Kabaji and Moji were passed out, defeated by this lone man, a black spike going through their abdomen. You won't be able to pass," exclaimed Buggy, although the enemy pirate remained smiling. Despite Buggy's front, he was completely bloody and beaten by the enemy. Darkness covered Buggy the Clown as he was swallowed whole. His will would be tested as the invading person continued on, towards the operations department of the Straw Hat Pirates. Ah! Nobody could hear him, but Buggy was within the darkness. He was in so much pain, as he felt like he was being pulled and cut into a million pieces. For within the darkness, the clown was being tortured to his death. "Get me an IV running through Lucci right away," exclaimed Dr. Hogback. who was tasked with the tall order of trying to save the third commander. Though no help ever came, as something dark covered their tent. "What is the meaning of this?" exclaimed Dr. Kureha, although her question was quickly answered. "Enemy on the proximity," exclaimed Galdino as he immediately jumped into action. In the communication department, Dice had also joined Galdino, as a lone member of the Whitebeard pirates, stood before them. He was the reason everyone was surrounded by darkness. "Listen, you don't have to do this," said Galdino as he held his arms up, trying to calm the enemy pirate. "I don't?" asked the plump man with a dark grin over his face. It was then that Galdino realized that this man was not someone they could negotiate with. He morphed his fist into a wax boxing glove, and provided Dice with wax shoulder pads. Dice charged at the darkness user only to find himself flat on the ground, under the foot of the enemy. Galdino then tried to attack him, only to be at the receiving end of a spike, straight through his chest. "Zee-ha-ha-ha," laughed the darkness user. He then sunk into the ground, once again causing a massive explosion, this time at the heart of the Straw Hat's communication department and the medical bay. As the smoke cleared, their entire operation was destroyed. People were slow to recover as the resulting explosion was devastating. Brûlé got up, finding Viola under a pile of rocks. "Help!" exclaimed Brûlé, but nobody would answer her call, so instead of relying on others, she instead lifted the heavy object by herself, using every ounce of her remaining strength to lift up the debris. To her delight, it was lifted, and Viola was finally free. But there were countless other members of the Alliance that needed help, so there was really no time to celebrate. In the medical bay, the medical staff and patients found themselves unharmed. "How?" asked Dr. Crocus, though the answer was outside, as the giant who was defeated by Jozu had to be treated outdoors. And as a commander, after realizing that their medical team was under attack, Haruden had shielded the medical tent with his own body. And now, the explosion caused him to faint. Though it was thanks to the 8th commander, that the medical bay was there to help others. It was unfortunate that the communication department went down, but it was lucky that the war had been called off. Perfect timing, thought Viola as she laid in the medical bay. But she needed to look one more time, to make sure that everyone was safe. She activated her vision power, looking into the distance. Though due to her exhaustion, she overshot her aim and went way past the battlefield, even past the Whitebeard pirates. Though what she saw caused her to cry, scared for what was coming. For in the distance, flags of marine covered the ocean. "They're coming," exclaimed Viola to the surprise of those in the medical bay. "What is it?" Enel had finally awoke from his defeat and was the first to get to Viola. "The Marines are coming." "Oh no," said Crocus, for a member of the Rogers pirate to recognize that they were fucked. Then they truly were fucked. "Fuck." The group were now in a panic, as Brûlé finally woke up from her slumber. "What's going on?" she asked groggily. "Hurry and warn the personnel at the battlefield. The Marines are here," commanded Enel. Brûlé brought a mirror in front of her face, her eyes wide open. "Marines are coming," she screamed on the top of her lungs, her voice echoing all throughout the battlefield. Straw Hats and Whitebeard pirates alike heard it loud and clear. Meanwhile, on the fields of the northern shore, a body of a fallen commander remained on his feet. Darkness finally disappeared from around him. He was covered in his own blood, his eyes were lifeless, his breath was slow and troubling. And yet, he remained standing. Not once did the flag of the Straw Hat pirates fall. It had to stay up, the flag had to, no matter the cost. Inland Unknown Island Luffy stood tall over Whitebeard. He had come out victorious on their final attacks. Rubber absorbed the super quake that Whitebeard generated. He was exhausted beyond belief, as Luffy had suffered many internal injuries. A couple of broken ribs, and he was sure he tore many of his muscles. Hopefully his abnormal healing factor will take care of that. Meanwhile, the old man was of course suffering for his old age, as he was coughing furiously. He sustained many broken bones all over his body and his left arm was limp. His knee blew and it was a miracle that he was moving. If it was 2 years that Luffy went straight for the Yonko, he would have had his asses handed to him and died at the hands of the strongest. But 2 years of training with the most powerful people that he knew helped him prepare for this moment. "I lost." Whitebeard fell on one knee and couldn't believe that he was beaten. If Mugiwara delivered a finishing blow, He wouldn't even have enough energy to fight back. It was his utter defeat. "Yes," exclaimed Luffy as he fell backwards on his back, for he too had reached his limit, and used the last ounce of his energy to stand before Whitebeard and wait for his yield. "Hey old man." Luffy was flat on his back, and Whitebeard was on one knee, as neither man could move anymore. "What brat?" he asked, panting for air as he coughed up blood. "If it's all the same, I would love some sake now." "Gurarara. Brat, are you dying?" His tone suddenly shifted. He realized that the old man was held back by his chronic cough. "Yeah, if you call off this war, I have someone that can cure you." "Yeah right, Mugiwara. If I were to show any weakness, Kaido and Linlin will try to take my territories for their own. And those evil bastards will cause pain and suffering for the people I swore to protect. By Fishman Island joining your flag, it showed that I was vulnerable, and I could not have that happen." As he responded with doubt, Law emerged from a doorway, presented by Bluno. Whitebeard took note of the new arrival. "I understand that, Whitebeard. How would you like to be healthier and younger? To stop these evils from ever getting an upper hand on you?" added Luffy, to which Bonnie emerged from the same doorway. "What benefit would helping me do for you, Mugiwara?" "Well, it would get you off my back, of course. Stop this dumb war about pride. And I will need your help in the future. So it would benefit me as I need an alliance with you," responded Luffy matter-of-factly. "Is that right?" With nothing more to lose, Whitebeard decided to take him up for his offer. "Go on then. Just don't resist." So Luffy looked at his people and nodded his head, and they began their work. First was Bonnie, who touched the world's strongest man. It took a lot out of her to bring him down, but she did it. Suddenly, she has turned him into a 25-year-old, back in his absolute prime. Whitebeard looked at himself, admiring the work of the age manipulation user. "Wow," was all he could say as he was younger once more. "How long will this last?" "Forever. Until I revert you back," responded Bonnie weakly as she took a seat on the ground, exhausted from the technique she had used. Whitebeard yawed. This will brought his hands forward. Room? Suddenly Whitebeard was encompassed by a clear blue bubble, and Law brought his sword out and sliced Whitebeard. His body then floated in the air in sections, and Law began to work on him. After an hour, Law had a jar of purple substance, what everyone could only assume as poison. "You should be okay now, Whitebeard. Yeah. Just stay on top of your health, stop excessive drinking and exercise more," said Law as he returned Whitebeard to normal. "Is that poison?" "Yes," replied Law. But in Whitebeard's mind, he thought of who could do such a thing to him. Who would betray him? So, Luffy was glad he took him up for his offer. He didn't know if he could go on for more rounds. "Go on guys, thank you for your help." Law and Bonnie took an awkward bow, and Law assisted Bonnie as she was weakened. They have successfully performed their designated task and left through the doorway of Bluno. The Whitebeard before Luffy was now in his prime. His flowing blonde hair was noticeable, and he had a new air about him. Law had cured his sickness, while Bonnie made him younger. "Not so bad, Mugiwara. So this was your deal the whole time, huh?" The thought of who betrayed him was put in the back of his mind, for now. "Yeah, I need you, Whitebeard. In the future there will be a war that would decide the fate of the world, and I can't let you die before then." "Is that so? That makes sense. You know, Gold D. Roger did mention someone who will come to shake this world." In a memory of his past encounter with the Pirate King, Whitebeard could vividly remember it, as he shared a cup of sake with the dying Roger. The Pirate King offered to give him the information on how to get to Raftel, to which he refused. Though when Whitebeard brought up that he knew someone similar to Roger with a D in their name, Roger asked him if he knew what it meant, then told him about it. "So this is the guy, Roger? The man who will change the world?" thought Whitebeard as their surroundings reverted to normal, Luffy's rubber room no longer in effect. An open door was left by Bluno for Whitebeard to return to the mainland. "Let's have a sake in front of our people, to solidify our alliance." "Yeah, I'd like that." Though Luffy noticed someone coming, slowly, Whitebeard was already inside the doorway created by Bluno, so it made sense he could not sense this incoming person. "You coming, Mugiwara?" Noticed that Luffy was hanging back. "I'll be there in a bit." To which Whitebeard nodded his head, his golden locks flowing in the air. Whitebeard disappeared inside the door. "Bluno, tell everyone that I will meet them soon. I know my way back." To this Bluno nodded and disappeared inside the door, closing it from behind him. This left Luffy on the unknown island. Cold air suddenly filled the surrounding and Luffy immediately knew who it was. Enland Whitebeard went through the other side of the door, just as Brûlé had announced that the Marines were coming. Marco immediately noticed his new look. Later, responded Whitebeard. "Let's go." "Retreat," commanded Whitebeard, as the war with the Marines in their current depleted conditions is not in their best interest. Katakuri had joined Whitebeard, as Bluno filled him in on the new alliance as well as the captain staying behind as he had to take care of something. "We have 2 ways to go to a pocket dimension, mirror and door. I have one man who can hold thousands of bodies inside his fortress," offered Katakuri, as he remained calm in this troubling situation. "I appreciate the offer, Dogtooth, but we can get out of this on our own. If you run into Mugiwara, tell him to rendezvous at my home island, Sphinx." Whitebeard provided Katakuri with an eternal log post to his island. Katakuri nodded at the Yonko respectfully and returned to his people. With the captain missing, he had to call the shots. "Alright, listen up." Katakuri brought the mirror communication device in front of him, broadcasting throughout all allies. "Big, bring in as many people as you can. Bluno and Brûlé, open as many portals to your dimensions. We have to retreat now. Law, Dory, Bragi, Arlong with me." As soon as he made the command, Big activated the Big Father, opening the gates to allow allies to enter. Brûlé activated as many mirror portals as she could, as her brother's plan is probably to house the alliance inside her dimension until they are at a safe distance. Bluno did the same thing. For those who can, they directed people in going through the portals as safe and efficiently as possible. Katakuri was joined by the people he called. "Dory and Brogy, carry as many ships as you could, then I'll have Brûlé create a portal big enough for you both." The 2 giants nodded their heads and went to work. "Arlong, bring Laboon and Sarume to the northern port. Law, transport the remaining ship to the back of Laboon and the limbs of Sarume." The 2 nodded and went to work. They had to get out quick, the Marines were coming. When the Marines arrived at Enland, it was empty. The remnant of an epic battle remained. Though something was up to the island, as it seemingly became cold all of a sudden. The entire island of Enland was covered in thick ice, and the weather shifted to Arctic conditions. "Where the hell are Mugiwara and Whitebeard?" exclaimed Admiral Akainu. Admiral Zephyr looked around, touching the ground as to observe for any signs of the pirates. "They left in a hurry. They have all gone," commented Zephyr. The purple-haired admiral looked around at the distance. It was too late, they were too late. "Unknown island, Kuzan," said Luffy with a smile, not knowing why the Marine Admiral was there. Mugiwara. Kuzan had arrived without wearing his marine attire. For he had arrived as just a simple man, there to meet the Straw Hat Captain. So, if he would have to fight Kuzan, he didn't know if he had any more in him. He was too tired from fighting Whitebeard, he barely had any energy to stand. "You are a time traveler, correct? Damn. Kuzan was good, he caught on quick. Or did someone tell him, who would do such a thing? All that knew were his grandpa and Shanks. No. I am." Luffy limped, but he stood on both feet, looking at Kuzan in the face. "Now what?" "You can't be here, Mugiwara," began Kuzan. "There is such a thing as space-time continuum, Mugiwara, and by you being here, you're breaking the very fabric of reality. Mess with time and we could be swallowed by darkness from your interference." "Okay, but where are you going with this?" He saw him raise his hands, but his body could not react quickly enough. Before Luffy could move his tired muscles, Kuzan had launched an ice trap, freezing everything below Luffy's neck. "Mugiwara, I will have to take care of you." "Fuck," exclaimed Luffy as he tried to wiggle out of his encasement. As there was no way to get out, he knew he would have to accept his fate, but he couldn't let certain events to happen. So he had to ask a favor. He was going to die. "Before you kill me, can I have a final will?" he pleaded with his eyes. There was no incentive for the Admiral to let him have one. At least he made the life of people better than they were before. He accomplished something, even if it would mean little for others, it meant a lot to him. Kuzan weighed his options, thinking about the Straw Hat Captain's request. "Go ahead then. Your final will." Kuzan brought a recording Denden Mushi in front of Luffy, letting him speak his mind. Suddenly, something triggered in Luffy's head. His despair was replaced by hope, even just slightly, by you being here. So Luffy did so, outlining orders for everyone, giving personal messages to his queens, and apologizing that he had to die. Kuzan let him get to his last message before pulling the trigger. Goodbye Mugiwara. And just like that, Monkey D. Luffy was frozen enough to kill a normal man. To give himself certainty, Kuzan froze the entire island, the island which Luffy and Whitebeard fought. He covered it in a massive layer of ice, enough to change the WN land itself. Countless Marines found Kuzan sitting along an ice chair, and they asked him what happened, to which he answered, "I killed Mugiwara. For the world will remember that day as the death of Mugiwara, and the victory of the Whitebeard pirates." Though the Marines spun it so that Admiral Aokiji ended the war by killing Mugiwara and caused a retreat from all pirates within the vicinity. Garp nearly killed Aokiji but was stopped by Sengoku, even needing to use his golden Buddha form to restrain the Vice Admiral. "That's my grandson, you bastard," exclaimed Garp, veins popping out of his forehead. "It had to be done," replied coldly by the man named Kuzan. World Economy newspaper, damn. Morgans had bet it all on Mugiwara and it seemed like he lost. He typed feverishly as he wanted to deliver the news as soon as he could. He didn't need Kizaru knocking on his front door again after all. Once he was done, he angrily ripped the template from the typewriter, and read what he had to write. He had to be partial of the Marine as he was given a hefty bribe to do so. On the birth of a new year, a war took place. The Straw Hat Pirates challenged the Whitebeard Pirates into the match of the century. Shirahige was a man of many things, but he was best known as being the strongest, and for Mugiwara to challenge him, it was a testament of his cockiness. Mugiwara is the same man who blazed through the Grand Line, destroying nations such as Alabasta, Dressrosa, and Fishman Island, delegating the creation of a terrible armada full of criminals. It was a hard-fought battle, and yet the Whitebeard pirates came out on top, and just as all hope was lost, our marine protectors, who are righteous and just, arrive in the nick of time to cause a retreat from the evil forces, with Admiral Aokiji coming out on top by killing Mugiwara. For those who wish to become pirates, this is your warning, as your faith will surely lead to death, by the hands of justice. The Albatross Zone dropped the paper and dipped his head into his arm. This was not the real story of what really happened, just propaganda by the world government. He took a sip of his alcoholic drink and tossed the news to the side. His photos from the war finally developed. He looked at each one, admiring what took place that day. It must have taken him hours to look through all the photos, and yet, not another soul saw those photos. Morgans brought the photos into his safe, locking it, for the world cannot see what happened that day, or it would be his head. Sphinx. 3 weeks later. It had been 3 weeks and still no news from the captain. Of course they heard that Admiral Aokiji killed him, but they could not believe it. The content of his recording was delivered to the Straw Hat Pirates after they had traveled far from Enland. The Marines overran the island and Katakuri had to make the difficult decision of leaving before being caught. Whitebeard had offered his home island as a rendezvous point, and everyone was now there, still filtering in slowly and getting the medical help that they need. The recording found itself in a package delivered to Hancock, titled, Mugiwara's Final Will. Hancock called a meeting. All commanders of the Straw Hat Pirates were present, and Whitebeard along with Marco, Jozu, and Vista were there as well. "Hey guys. Sorry I died," began Luffy, although he had a smile throughout the whole time. The recording of the Straw Hat captain was visual and auditory, which caused tears to begin to flow as the sudden reality of his actual death came crashing into everyone's heart. "I have been granted a last will before I died, so let me begin with Katakuri. I give you the Straw Hat Armada, as no better person can lead this armada than you. Carry on my legacy and become an emperor of the sea." Katakuri seethed as the very ground he stood in began to cave at the pressure he was releasing. "Am I deserving of your service, Mihawk? I'm sorry, but looks like I died before you can help me become the king. But you can still become the greatest swordsman in the world." Frustration erupted from the second commander, as he unleashed a wave of haki. People felt his frustration, but Luffy continued on the recording. There was no pause button. "Alive, stay that way, Lucci. I hope you find who you are looking for, but revenge is not the answer. Cherish your newfound friendship and do not fall into darkness." Lucci nodded his head, swearing to his captain's command. Everyone, Who would have thought Arlong and Brûlé would be a thing? Anyway, in all seriousness, take care of your people and make sure that the journey to the surface world is safe. I am so proud of what you have become, Arlong. Please lend Brook Jinbei as he is very important in my mission for him. More on that later. Everyone had a good chuckle at the Straw Hat Captain's joke. Arlong agreed to the plan, as his captain would want. As soon as the meeting was over, he will deliver the news to the helmsman. Be it as it may, Brook, I'm sorry buddy. Please take care of the kids. They need to stay safe no matter what. Frankie and Jinbei are really good guys, take him with you. And wherever my Robin goes, please protect her. Aye, Captain, said Brook softly. Tears flowed through his eye socket. He thought of a bone joke but dropped it. He was in no mood to make one. He'll have to talk to Frankie and Jinbei later, right after this sad moment. Back then, Crocodile, I hated you, but you better not start a new crime syndicate, you hear? Stay with everyone and find a guy nicknamed Black Cat for me. He'll be a good addition to our armada. Crocodile didn't show it in his face, but deep inside he too was hurting at the loss of their captain. To have the captain acknowledgement and including him in this bunch of idiots. It made his heart clenched tightly. So Crocodile did have a heart after all. Real knows real, Guild. Make sure to keep doing honest work and earning honest money. Keep me proud, keep her proud. Guild 2 didn't cry, but he was hurting. He learned to accept Luffy as his captain, as did many of the people in that room. Soon, Haruden, you will achieve your dream of reinstating the giant pirates. I had hoped to be alive to witness it happen. Haruden, the giant, didn't hold back as he let his tears flow. The young pirate captain swore to fulfill the captain's wish, the reinstatement of the giant pirates. In spite of the current situation, Moria, we are your family. No matter what, stick with everyone. And locate and subdue a guy named Caesar for me. He'll work well with the crew. Moria was crying, for losing the person he respected the most. It took a lot out of him to actually learn to respect the Straw Hat Captain, and for him to die. 9 times out of 9, I would pick you, Buggy, as you are an amazing pirate, and never forget that. Give Shanks a slap on the back of his head next time you see him. Buggy too was crying furiously. But more notably, in the distance, Shanks had been listening in on the Straw Hat's will. His eyes was covered with his red hair, but it was noticeable that tears were flowing. It had to be done. It took you years, Enel, to discover what it meant to have a family. I hope you have seen us as a family like we see you. Stay close and keep everyone safe. I never told you this, but try to infuse hockey in your lightning. It would be deadly. Enel nodded his head, smiling at the advice from his late captain. Though he gripped his fist tightly as he only had revenge in his mind. Kuzan. Now to Whitebeard, I hope you have made it out alive after the beating you took from me. Whitebeard chuckled at the grim reminder that the world government has dubbed Whitebeard to be the victor of the war. And they gave Kuzan the credit for killing Mugiwara. Even through my death, I hope you honor our alliance. Maybe Mugiwara wasn't the one that was promised, he had to find him, whoever he may be. Whitebeard looked at Katakuri, the new captain of the Straw Hats. I will, I swear it. Thank you, responded Katakuri quietly. Pops, you lost to Mugiwara, huh? Asked Marco. I did, replied Whitebeard with a smile over his face. A single tear rolled down his eye. He'll find the one that was promised. Everyone please leave, as this next part will play for my queens. That's an order. Everyone chuckled at the final order of the captain. Though probably in the face of death, he still joked. As the room cleared, leaving Hancock, Viola, and Robin, the recording device played. The 3 women were in tears, after losing the love of their life. Viola, I wish for you to return to your country and become the queen that you were meant to be. I love you so much, and I wish I could be there to embrace you one last time. Robin, take the minks up for their quest to retrieve the poneglyphs. But be extra careful and do not go after the road poneglyphs. Not unless you have the backing of the entire armada and the Whitebeard pirates. I'm sorry I left you like this. I love you. And I wish I could kiss you one last time. Hancock. His voice cut off as his voice trembled noticeably. The emotion was overflowing, they could feel it. Please understand, I love you. The freezing ensued as the sound of the snail cut off. They jumped slightly at the ending of the message, as it was his last breath before being murdered by Kuzan. The weight of his voice caused her to collapse on the ground. The three queens embraced one another, their eyes filled with tears at the loss of the love of their life. The end of an era had finally come for the man with the straw hat, his signature hat drifting through the wind from Enland to wherever it would land. A knife will fill the world with darkness, for the birth of the end is near. Teach killed Thatch, fulfilling his destiny. Blood and destruction will cover the air as one man will once again become his best. The war which shook the foundation of the world, Whitebeard came out younger and stronger. A faceless man and a passageway will put a halt to the pain. Bonkley and Bluno worked together in conjunction to pose as Whitebeard and put an end to the war to allow their captain to fight against the real Whitebeard. To ensure the birth of the new age, a unification that has never been seen before, the Straw Hats, under Katakuri, have now joined an alliance with Whitebeard. An alliance never seen before. A Straw Hat man will have ice fill his veins as he will die from this very world. Monkey D. Luffy. Rest in peace, year 1515.